Got a nice little question from Paul Cooper straight away. Yeah, exactly. Right, I'm just coming in live, just waiting for a few people to come in and then I'll get started. Hope everyone's had a good day. I haven't. Not been in the digger today, so I got very wet. Yeah, not impressed. I'm normally safeguarded in the digger, but yeah, not today. Right, so guys are coming in. Hey all, Lee Ashby from Motocross and Speedway Memories. Good that a few of you are all starting to come in. Hi Wes, how you doing, mate? Got an awesome interview for you this evening, but what I'll do is I'll get you my thank yous out the way first. Right, I just want to thanks for the support to Simon Pardo of White Eagle Finance. They give quality financial advice for pensions, investments, mortgages and protection. Check the website at www.whiteeaglefinance.co.uk. Thanks to Luke Gorse, a motocross rider as well, of X44 App Solutions. He sorted out my new website for me. You can check at www.mxspeedwaymemories.co.uk. Big thanks to Stefan Everett with his S72 gin and vodka brand. Check all his amazing products at s72gin.com. And also now big thanks to Tom Brown of Moto Extreme in Marshfield. You can get all your off-road needs there, sorted by those guys. They got the new Kawasaki 221 range you can purchase, all your off-road gear. They also sort all your bike maintenance out, used and restored bikes they do as well. And you can go to www.motoextreme.co.uk and also Tom's Moto Part 46 practice track. Really good, just off the Bath M4 motorway junction. So you guys can ring up Moto Extreme on 01225 89 227 and book in for practice for there as well. Right, got the thank yous in. See, plenty of you guys are in here now, so that's brilliant. So I'll get my little countdown on its way. Here we go for the main man. Right, we're speaking tonight to the 11 times British motocross champion. He won the MX The Nations in 1994 with Team GB with Malin and Nickel. Also second at the Nations for GB in 86 and third in 1992. At times in this man's career, he was without doubt the fastest man on the planet in motocross for me and many others. So it's awesome to be able to speak to him live tonight with you guys. I'm just going to bring him in now. It's Mr. Rob Herron himself. How's it going, Rob?
All good, thanks, Lee. All very well, thank you.
I really appreciate your time coming on, mate. Everyone's been excited for this one, especially myself. Little fan here. Did you get that, Rob? Oh, yeah, it's a bit delayed. That's all right. We're all good as long as you can hear me okay.
Yes,
right, I'll get into...
Yeah, a bit of a delay here.
Yeah, that's okay, as long as you can hear me okay. Yeah, so first of all, just before I get onto the guys' questions that are all coming in thick and fast now, I'm just going to... I had a Facebook message off Paul Cooper just before I come on. He's put, hey, mate, how you going? I'm not able to watch Robbie tonight, but can you start the questions rolling for me, please? He put, can you tell everyone, Rob, what the nicknames were that you came up with for each other and Mark Eastwood and Craig Prattley? And also a bit of humour as well. A good story would be if he tells you why our rental car nearly made it back to the airport from the Czech GP in '94 as well.
Yeah, well, we had numerous sort of nicknames for each other. I think at the time there was myself, who was Rubber Ring, Paul Coops. I can't remember what was Paul's. Trying to remember. Kurt was Clint Nipple.
Okay.
Mark Eastwood was Cram Wobble. A lot of that had to do with his elbows down riding style.
Okay,
I'm trying to think of some of the other names. It's so long ago, I can't remember some of the other names. Paul's probably got a better memory than I have.
Craig Prattley. What was Craig Prattley?
I'm trying to think what some of the other boys were.
Craig Prattley.
Geez, I can't. To be truthful, I can't even remember. It's put me on the spot.
What was your?
I'm thinking too hard now.
What was yours and
Yeah.
can you remember yours and Cooper's to each other?
Well, mine I think was Rubber Ring, obviously because it kind of sounds like my name, which is a bit sort of slightly obvious. I think I've always called Coops, Luap Repuk, because that's just Paul Cooper backwards. So I called him Repuk, which is a bit silly really. But we had silly nicknames. We had a whole load of nicknames for the American riders too. Jeff Stanton was Stan Jeffers. Damon Bradshaw was Brad Damon Shaw. Just because we'd joke along, we're only young at the time, joke along when we drive and talk about our heroes and talk about racing and refer to each other in these humorous ways. But we had a whole load of names, but I can't remember too many of them, to be truthful.
So what happened with this rental in the Czech GP94 then?
Well, the rental car was I can't remember what car we had, but we kind of shared a rental car from the airport to the track, and then obviously from the track back to the airport. And at the end of the Grand Prix, I think there was myself, Coops, Paul Malin, and Mark Eastwood, and we decided to do a lap of the whole circuit in the rental car. And it had some big old hills in and some decent tabletops. I think we got about a quarter of the way around, and myself and Coops decided to get out of the car and just let Mark and Mailer do the rest of the lap. So we stood back and watched. And I mean, how they got up this hill, I've no idea. But they decided to try and tackle the finish line tabletop, which nosedived into. It didn't make it over the tabletop, but it nosedived into sort of the halfway point of the tabletop, completely stoved the front in. We had no brakes, we had no power steering, we had no active ride because it was a Citroen. It had the old active ride suspension, no active ride suspension, and we had to drive a 4-hour drive back to the airport for the following day's flight out, which was quite tricky. I mean, we made it with no brakes, we made it, but it was a bit of a hair-raising journey. I can't remember who got the bill for the hire car. It certainly wasn't me, and it certainly wasn't Coop. But it was hilarious. I mean, I think the screaming going on inside the car from Mailer and from Mark Eastwood was just as funny as watching the actual car nosedive into the ground on the finish line tabletop. But it just proves, a standard family rental car can do a lap of a GP circuit in the
right hands. Yeah. We'll get that as well. All right, I've got a question here. Can't see the name of it. I'm just going to bring it up on the screen. If you could have your career again, would you change anything?
Yeah, of course I would. I mean, that's an obvious question. If you knew what we know now, going back, yeah, I would train properly. I would train from a really young age and get myself in proper shape. And just to try and steer away from the injuries that I had because I was a bit wild when I was young, trying to win races on the first lap. I'd have a different mentality. So I would definitely change that. I'd probably also do things like spend more time on a 500 rather than going into the 250 Grand Prix, because I really feel that I should have gone to the 500s to start with and not really, I wouldn't say wasted years in the 250s, but I was better on a bigger bike. So I spent more time there. So those are the two probably obvious things that I would have changed if I'd have stayed in Europe. If I could go back again, I'd also like to do the American thing, go to the States, but that would have been a separate issue. I would like to have gone there straight from South Africa rather than come here. But those are the two different scenarios, I suppose.
Because basically, when you were in South Africa, you obviously did a lot of that Supercross version, sort of almost American type of stuff. How do you think you would have done in America? Because it would have definitely, without doubt, have suited you from at that time. Oh, we've lost Rob for a second. Hopefully he'll be back in a second, guys. Rob said his internet connection's not been great, so he did jump off earlier just before we come on. Hopefully we'll get him back in a second. A lot of you guys are coming in. You haven't clicked on the link before you come into the live, so I can't see your name or your profile. I want to see if Rob's coming back in.
You're all back, I'm Rob? Back here again now.
You all
I'm
right?
back and I'm basically sat on the Wi-Fi router, so mighty
I just said
uncomfortable.
yeah, I just said you had a little bit of a problem with it before we started. I said, but hopefully you sat on top of it again.
Yeah, I'm right on top of it.
Yeah, so just before we went off, I don't know if you heard, I said uh, obviously about when you come from South Africa over to the UK,
Yeah.
that would have suited you maybe going to America. And obviously the Supercross style was the same like in South Africa. You did a lot of the jumps and etc. And that would have suited you well at the time. How do you think you would have done in America? That would have been a good thing at the time, I think.
I think if I could have got, I mean, I had an offer at the end of '87 to go and race for Yamaha US in the States, but it fell through at the last minute. But I think if I'd gone at that stage, I was basically my first year of Grand Prix was like a good learning curve. If I'd have gone at that stage, I think I probably would have done pretty well because I mean, when I went to the US GPs in '87, '88. 88, I qualified fastest. I led the first moto for about halfway at Unadilla. I had the speed. My Supercross technique was fresh.
Mhm.
When I went out to the States testing, I was always riding, the Yamaha Supercross track,
Yeah.
and was doing everything the other guys were doing. Obviously, I never raced Supercross properly, American style Supercross properly. But I think my style then was, was still into that sort of mode of riding. After 4 or 5 years in Europe, my style changed and I became more of an outdoor rider. I was still okay
Mm.
at Supercross, but not to the level that the Americans are at. So if I'd have gone there early, I think I probably would have done pretty well. My speed was as fast as anybody, if not
Yeah,
faster.
definitely. Yeah.
Just sometimes I had to calm myself down.
Hmm. Right, I've got a question here from a Richard Blackmore. He's put, "Hi Lee, can you ask Rob, did he race a KX 500 in 1985 at Frowchester, was that? Riding number 7? Haynes 4-stroke support race. The late, great Dave Denley was riding a Kajiva WMX 500. Do you remember that, Rob? Was that you?
Yeah, I think yeah, I'm pretty sure I did. In '85, yeah, '85, I came over and did a couple of races to really get my qualifying points because I knew I was going to come and race in the UK in 1986 full time. So I came
Yeah.
over to get my sort of expert points. And I raced at a couple of races that year on a borrowed KX 500. And I remember David Denny really well, actually. He was a
Hmm.
really nice chap
Yeah.
on that Kajiba 500, which was probably one of the only 500 Kajibas in the country. So I
Yeah.
remember that really well. Don't remember the track too well, but I remember the race meetings. I remember the people. So yeah, that was me.
Ah, brilliant. Got that one right then. Thanks for that question. Got a James Stanton. He's put, what was Rob's favourite race bike and race team during his career?
I think I've had different favorite bikes and different favorite race teams. I think because it depends on what era of my
Yeah.
career as a schoolboy. My favorite race
Mhm.
team was Blue Stratus Kawasaki, who I raced for in South Africa. That was
Yeah.
the team. But when I came over to race professionally,
Yeah.
I think probably the team that I enjoyed racing more with at the time. I enjoyed the Honda UK days
Yeah.
when it was run officially as a Honda team before it got palmed off to their private sponsors. But I also enjoyed the RWJ setup when I was on Honda and also Kawasaki. So I
Hmm.
would say as a professional, I enjoyed when it was run directly through Honda UK, and then also Colin Reed's team RWJ. There's a nice atmosphere within the camp. There wasn't too many egos, it was quite, yeah, we had to get on and do a job, but it was a nice atmosphere to race under.
That makes a big difference for the rider then.
It does, I think.
Hmm.
If you're under a lot of personal pressure anyway, because we all put
Yeah.
pressure on ourselves to perform because we want to win. When you have excess pressure from the team as well, pushing you, sometimes that can work to detriment. It's more about, I think, about encouraging, bringing out the best in a person, and sometimes I think if you're under too much pressure, things like arm pump, stuff like that affects you a lot more. So having a relaxed but professional outfit behind you that's taking care of you rather than you're just there as a commodity to perform.
Yeah.
They treat you more as a person. That to
Yeah.
me was what racing, because to me I got into racing professionally because I enjoyed it. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wanted to be with a team that allowed me to enjoy it, and I wanted them to enjoy my experience of racing too. It wasn't all about being 100%, 100% focused on the end result. I
Mhm.
raced because I enjoyed racing, so I
Mhm.
needed a team behind me that was also focused on that.
Yep, fair enough. That's good. Next question I got. There's no name on this one. Has motocross progressed as a sport or gone backwards, do you feel? Interesting one.
I different in some ways has gone forward. In some ways, what the riders earn has gone forward, which is really good for the
Yeah.
riders.
Yeah.
The guys take a hell of a lot of risks. At the top guys, I'm glad that they're earning better money. It's still not great compared to a lot of the more popular sports out there, but I think in that aspect it's gone forward. The
Yep.
razzmatazz a little bit is gone forward. It's slightly more professional than what it was, but I think as far as races and a platform to get into Grand Prix, okay, ultimately you've got the Grand Prix series. It's harder to get into. It costs a fortune to do it. There's not a lot of room for really sort of young upcoming riders to get into it without
Yeah.
already having to either buy a ride or pay a lot of money into a team or have a big sponsor behind you that's funding things. To
Mhm.
me, it's kind of the grassroots, that stepping stone from sort of like not grassroots, but sort of British Championship level into the Grand Prix is harder, because of the
Mhm.
way they've structured it. So to me, it's kind of gone backwards. And to me,
Mhm.
also, I think it's in a way, in my opinion, this is my opinion. To me, it's gone backwards in a way because the fun factor seems to have gone out of it a lot more than what it was in my day. I think
Yeah.
because when I was into it, doing the Grand Prix, it was still quite early on. Grand Prix were still fairly sort of fresh as far as the television coverage and
Yeah.
Giuseppe Luongo and Youth Stream and Dorna and all that kind of thing. Um, there was still a bit of fun in it, but I think now it's so serious. Guys are being
Mhm.
groomed just really, really young to be professional racers,
Mhm.
and it's to me it looks like some of the fun's taken out, and it's so serious. And
Mhm.
we all race for different reasons. Some guys are very serious about their racing, and they don't do it so much for the fun. It's a job. I did it for the fun of it, and it became a
Mhm.
job, but I still did it for the fun of it. And to me, it's lost some of that fun factor. But that's just my opinion.
Do you think that's obviously like the riders are not accessible as they were sort of in them days in the 90s and into sort of era where, supporters could get closer to the riders in the pits and that sort of thing? And
I think, in a way, that although they seem very, very good on camera, and a lot of them are
Mhm.
trained, obviously, to deal with the
Mhm.
media, to how they present themselves to the media. I think
Yeah.
they have these signing on, autograph sessions where the media can get autographs, which is all controlled
Mhm.
by Action Group or Dawn or whoever's running it. It's all controlled.
Mhm.
There's less of them walking around the crowd walking around the paddock, just bumping into, your hero as you're walking about the race circuit. That doesn't
Mhm.
happen anymore. The races are
Mhm.
kept in their own little zone in the Parc Fermé, in the paddock, away from the fans. Where we used to walk the track and roam in amongst the fans and stuff and the people, and you just get stopped by everybody talking. There seems to be a little bit less of that.
Mhm.
So they are a little bit less accessible, to the public. So in a way, I suppose it's almost keeping the riders up on a pedestal for the spectators. It's keeping the riders on a pedestal, making them these like sort of superhero type figures, and
Mhm.
it's just let them lose that little bit of sort of, just that little bit of, that they're no different than anybody else. We just happen to ride a
Mhm.
bike a bit faster than anybody else. That sort of, we're all kind of equal. They're putting them up on the pedestal a little bit more than what they did with our side, because they're less
Mhm.
accessible. Yeah, I used to enjoy going out there, mixing with the crowd, and talking to people. Half the time, it took my mind off the racing, so I had
Mhm.
less to worry about racing wise because
Yeah.
I was chatting, I was talking about other
Relax.
things,
Relax.
so
Yeah.
I wasn't getting myself wound up and worked up and nervous about the race coming up.
Mhm. It's a bit more relaxed. That always helps, doesn't it? Right, I
Yeah,
got another
definitely.
question here.
Help me.
There's no name on this one, but it says, so did Honda Britain or you make the decision to ride 250 early 90s?
That was that was both really. I mean, Honda Britain weren't really interested in me going into the 500s because they had obviously early 90s. Thorpe was riding. I think what year did Thorpe go to Kawasaki? Was it 91? Anyway, they didn't
Yeah,
really want
90.
me to go into the 500 class. You know, they had factory support from HRC Japan in 91 with a 250, and at the time I was still quite you know, although looking back, I think I would have preferred to have ridden the 500. You know, I was still in the zone of racing 250 Grand Prix, and you know, the 250s you could see was going to become the number one class because the 500s were dwindling a little bit. So I was in that sort of race 250s for a couple more years. So that was really it was kind of a joint decision, I suppose. But I can't remember there being much talk about racing 500 Grand Prix at the time through Honda Britain.
My mate Adam Fry has sent me a bit of a banter one here. What does Rob think of Lee Ashby? Not sure I want to know. Depends how this goes, eh, Rob?
Hey, Lee. Lee's great, man. You know, no, I think you're doing a great job what you're doing, Lee. We'd never met before, I don't think, unless we maybe a presentation, back in the day or something. But yeah, you know, great. You seem great, and I've seen all your pics. He's pretty handy on a speedway bike, let me tell you as well, guys. So you know, I know a little bit more about Lee and what he's been up to before. You know, he's quite handy on a speedway bike, and you know, not too bad on a motocross bike. So I've seen the trophies as well. From you know, no, he's cool.
Yeah.
He's a good lad.
That's great. That's great as well, and it's been quite cool being able to speak to my idols like you, Rob. Even having a bit of banter on WhatsApp and stuff. So that's really great to be able to do that. So I appreciate that, Rob. We've got another one here, Rob, who's put, what was your best race? Do you feel? Interesting. One race. Wow. What's your best race? Someone said, Rob. Do you hear that one? Can you hear that,
I
Rob?
didn't hear that one, Lee. Go again.
Yeah. Someone's put, what was your best race?
No, I didn't hear that one.
Okay. Best race?
My best race?
Yeah, sorry.
Probably, obviously, there were times I have best races for different reasons. I had best races because of the results that I had. You know, winning my first Grand Prix in Yugoslavia. You know, when I won both motos that day, that was obviously on paper that was my best race. Although I didn't enjoy the track really, and looking back on it, I don't think I rode particularly great. But one of the best races I had, which is only a support class for the British 500 Grand Prix at Hawkstone Park in 1989, I think it was, where I won both motos on a 250 and lap faster than Gabors and Thorpe on the 500s around Hawkstone. But I never rode Hawkstone well apart from that day. I don't know why I rode Hawkstone so well that day, but something clicked. And the way that I rode that day, to me, that stands out. You know, it didn't count for anything because it was a support race. But to me, that was one of my best days racing because I rode like I never put a foot wrong. I rode Hawkstone like I've never ridden before. So for different reasons, I had good days. One was a result and the other was purely because of the way I rode. So I enjoyed Hawkstone and I hate Hawkstone Park. So that was kind of weird. But yeah, that stands out as being one of my best days. Performance-wise, racing-wise.
Okay, brilliant. I got a next one from Reg Owen. He's put, Rob, can you remember Bryn, the Master Father mechanic? I met you and him at Matchams Supercross back in the 80s.
Yes, was that Master Father or was it Farter? Because he certainly was a Master Farter, if I remember right. Yeah, so please yeah. Yes, I do remember him very well, actually. Yeah. Back I do remember him very well. Yeah. Some time ago now, going back into the sort of late 80s. Yeah. But some things still stand out, and I remember people for different reasons. And yeah.
You remember that one? Oh, brilliant. A bit like you at Hawkstone that time then. Gone like the wind.
I'll never forget him.
Gone like the wind. Right, we got another one here. Oh, it's a bit personal, that one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Someone's put.
Yeah, absolutely.
Someone's put, what was the most money you earned in your best year, and was the money good in your day? Mm. Did you get that, Rob? Did that come through?
Say that one again.
Sorry. Someone's put.
No, it didn't come through that.
Okay. Someone's put, what was the most money you earned in your best year, and was the money good in your days? Did you get that? I think we might have lost Rob a second there. Oh, he's got it.
Money wasn't great in my day at all. I think I got the question that time, actually. I think the time that I was in it was kind of the money had gone down drastically. The late 70s, early 80s were still really good. The 500 Grand Prix, people like Malherbe, Joe Bay, Dave Thorpe were making a very good living out of racing for the day. When the factories pulled out and everything went to the production rules, bike-wise, where you couldn't have full factory bikes, they stopped pumping a lot of money into the racing. Also, when the teams went to private teams rather than manufacturer supported, or not supported teams, but manufacturer run teams, the money went down as well. You know, my best year, I mean, I'd hate, I mean, at the time it was probably 70 or 80,000 at the time, and I was nowhere near what other people were earning. You know, I always heard these rumors, people saying how much money I was earning, and I was like, where the hell did they hear that from? Because I think the public thought we were earning a lot more money than what we were. You know, and bear in mind that a lot of some of that money is from race bonuses, and that was on a good year. You know, and there were years when I raced and I broke my leg twice, where I had hardly any income, and I had no results at the end of the year because I had no results to bargain with. You know, and they said, the teams come along and go, well, you didn't do anything last year, so we can't pay you a salary, but we'll give you bikes and we'll pay you a mechanic, but you're going to basically race for nothing, but we'll give you some bonuses if you score points, and we'll give you bonus if you win championships. So you race for not a lot. Having had a poor year the previous year because you were out all year, so you end up trying to, you know, cover the year that you've just lost through injury, and then race for hardly anything. That realistically, I came out of racing with zero because I had some really bad years injury wise. I earned so little money that it was a struggle, but it's what I wanted to do. So, you know, I carried on racing, carried on struggling. I had very few years where I actually made any money, but I think I was in it at the wrong time. I certainly think now it's better for the top guys, but I think there's a lot of people out there now that are also racing to cover their expenses. You know, not making much money about it, but they do it for the passion of it.
Unbelievable. That.
I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, definitely answers the question. When you think of the football guys now are sort of on that sort of money a week, and they're not risking their lives as such. So, yeah.
Oh, it's ridiculous. And always, you know, and exactly, and they seem to be okay. They're skilled footballers, but a lot of running around, falling over, feigning injury. They want to do a game like motocross or rugby, and you look at the crashes the guys have, and they get up and they get back on their bike and they finish. And the rugby players that just get back up and carry straight on, and they get paid a pittance, you know. And yeah, to me, there is no comparison. You know, the hardship of what you put yourself through racing bikes. The guys who race and do well deserve to be paid extremely well for what they do. So, you know, I'm not. I enjoyed my time racing. I enjoyed it, but it would have been nice to have been paid a bit better. But hey, I wasn't. But hopefully, the guys in the future will get looked after a bit better.
Yeah. Next question I got off of Dan Merrifield. Hi, Dan. Hi, Lee. Can you ask Rob what his favourite track is in the UK and his favourite track out of the UK? Thanks, Dan. Did you get that, Rob?
My favourite track in the UK used to be, yeah, I heard that, Lee. My favourite track in the UK used to be my local practice track, which was at Crick, which is in Northamptonshire, which was an amazing track. in its early days. I think I was the first ever person to ride a bike on it, and it was the most awesome track to ride. But as far as a racetrack is concerned in the UK, I think I enjoyed Fox Hills, but I enjoyed it in its early days, in its sort of late 80s to early 90s time. I think after that it kind of went off. It was a little bit too manicured and a little bit too prepped. I liked it when it was a little bit rougher. The hills were left rough, and the hills were like uphill whoops and downhill whoops rather than being like a flat out uphill and downhill. So I enjoyed Fox Hills. As far as Grand Prix and World Championship tracks concerned, I enjoyed Unadilla in America. That was a phenomenal circuit for the layout and also the ground. The ground there is just amazing loamy soil, which is brilliant. And I also enjoyed Jerez in Spain when we had the Grand Prix there in 93 or 94 and the Motocross Donations there in 96, which was an awesome track to ride. Maybe not to spectate on, but from a rider's point of view, lovely track to ride. Yeah, so Jerez, in Unadilla as far as GP tracks, but probably Fox Hills in the UK racetracks.
Brilliant. Okay, next one I got for you, Rob, is from Mr. Rob Andrews. He's put awesome rider. How about those Bendy Factory Kawasaki triple clamps, Rob?
Ooh, how about those Bendy Factory? Yeah, sure. I think we bent a lot of stuff. I bent a lot of stuff on Kawasaki's. Hey Rob, how you doing? Thanks for the question. Yeah. Unfortunately, those bikes got a bit of abuse, and there were things that bent, and there were things that nobody really spoke about in the day because they're all hushed up and swept under the carpet. And before you know it, a new set was put on again. I'm sure Rob himself bent a few sets of factory triple clamps as well, but. I certainly I never had any snap on me, but I do know one rider that had a set snap on him, and the front end of the bike was laying somewhere, and the rear end of the bike was somewhere else. But when they try and make things lighter and they try and make things better, sometimes they forgive. They give a little bit of strength away, and before you know it, it's not all about lightness and factory bits. But yeah, I do remember them. Yeah.
Okay, the next one I got for you is from Wes Carlisle. He's put, "Hi Rob. Firstly, thanks for signing my memorabilia lately. And the question is, what was your best year of racing?" I'll bring it up on the screen.
My best year, and this might surprise some people what they think my best year was. My best year was actually 1986. Was my first year in the UK where I raced as a 17-year-old in the British Championship. Did my own thing really because I came over from South Africa without a deal. I brought a couple of my own bikes over, got help from Kawasaki, who already had their budget. They'd already spent their budget. But as soon as I came on the scene and they realised how good I was, they went, right, we've got to do something. And they helped me through Corby Kawasaki, and Brian and Alan at Corby Kawasaki helped me that year. And I ran through Kawasaki dealer. And basically I was a privateer and I could do the races I wanted to do. I was under no pressure from anyone. I entered a 125 Grand Prix. I did Supercrosses. I rode 125, 250, 500 British Championship. I did everything, but it was off my own back. And I did what I wanted to do. And purely for the enjoyment side, that was my best year. I didn't race any sort of world championship. I raced one GP. I didn't race the whole series. I narrowly missed out winning the 250 British Championship that year. I think I lost it at the last round, leading, and my crank blew when I was leading. The first race, I think it was. But it was just such a good year because I was not being told by anybody you had to do this, I had to go there, I could wear what clothing I wanted. I pleased myself.
We've lost Rob there for a second. Hopefully we'll get him back, people. Thanks ever so much for all your questions. I've got literally a load here. I'm definitely getting through them. So I'm sure Rob will come back in a second. All right, Rob?
Back again now.
Right, we're back again. We're all good.
Yeah, I just had to get that router out from...
Yeah, out of the backside a bit.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a little delay on the live from me to Rob, but he's definitely getting my questions after a little delay, so at least he's getting them and we can hear him nice and clear, so that's good. Right, Rob, the next one I had was from Alan Douglas. What was your favourite race gear? I personally love the Castrol Honda Apico gear from the early 90s, and I'll agree with Alan on that one. Personally, my favourite too, but what's Rob's?
Yeah, the 90s, the Castrol Apico gear stood out really well. I think I really like, and this is not because of my feminine side at all. I really like the 1988 Apico gear, which had the pink and the sky blue,
Oh, yeah.
white, pink, and sky blue, because I had white Alpine style boots on, and my sort of pink and blue and white Arai. To me, I really like that gear because it's so distinctive. But the Castrol, I think the whole Castrol livery with the gear actually went really, really well. So yeah, I think probably both those years, I think the Apico stuff really stood out, and that was my favorite gear that I rode in anyway. I think Apico gear for me was just such a good fit. Shame it's not around today.
No, I'm just actually might have a picture of that one here, actually. If we get it up on the screen. Can you see that, Rob? And that one there, look. Can you see that on the screen? A little delay.
Yeah, that gear. Yeah, I really like that.
That's the one, yeah.
I think that stands out. Jackie Vimond and Brock Glover wore pink JT gear, and a couple of years later, that I like that. It stood out so well.
Yeah, for sure.
On a Yamaha, on a white Yamaha, that looked really good.
Yeah, looked really good. Looked really trick. Right, another one I've got. No name on this one. 1988 Motocross Donations. What was your memories of that weekend?
– 1988 Motocross Nations, which was in France, Tilly-Cecile. I think it was in France. No, it wasn't Tilly-Cecile. Anyway, I can't remember the track's name. I think the first moto, I think I've got not a particularly good start, and I finished sixth in the first moto. America had a strong team that year: Jeff Ward, Ron Lachine, and Ricky Johnson. I was really quick in practice. I was right up there, first or second in practice in my groups the whole Saturday and Sunday morning. Rode well in the first race. We had a one of us got injured. I think it was it Kirk got injured that year and didn't ride. And if I remember right, I think Greg Hansen rode the 125, and so our team was already sort of weakened by Kurt's injury. And the second moto, I won the 250 class in the second moto. I was second behind Ron Lachine, who was on a 500 Kawasaki. But I think I rode pretty well that day. Although Ricky Johnson got a bad start and was coming through from the back, I still beat him by 7 or 8 seconds. He was catching me slowly, but by then I kind of backed off a little bit. But I was on good form that year, 1988. I was on really good form, myself and Jean-Michel Bale. Both of us then were sort of the up-and-coming European riders, although they classified me as European, having grown up in South Africa, but still. We were the sort of up-and-comers, and I think I sort of showed my speed. And I showed also, because that year in Unadilla, American Grand Prix, I led the first moto before falling off and splitting my hand open, so I couldn't ride the second moto. So to me, that was, and at the time, Ricky Johnson was behind me at Unadilla. So this time, I reversed the tables, and the next time I raced with him, I beat him in at the donation. So great memories, good track. I rode well. We didn't do well as a team, but sometimes we had bad luck. One rider's injured, and the Motocross Nations, that affects your overall result. But individually, I rode well, thoroughly enjoyed it. Loved the French crowd, always good crowd. Always seemed to get a good following in France too. So yeah, good weekend, good memories.
Brilliant. Quick shout out to the old Somerset Schoolboy Scramble Club riders, John Radford, Ben Masters, etc. You guys are all watching tonight. I'm sure you loved the Rob Herron back in the day. Next question I've got from Ben Davis. Do you remember the Nations in '98 when you hole shot Rob? I think that was the wet Fox Hill one. I'll never forget the moment when you come into the valley when Nick Fisk shouted out that Rob was leading. Can you remember that atmosphere and how you felt when you was leading? I'm sure your knee popped out when you was in front, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, 1998 on the 500 Kawasaki Honda at the Motocross Donations in the mud. Yeah, whole shot the first race, led it. Yeah, and yeah, the crowd was amazing. You know, you can hear it above everything else. You know, because you can see the flags waving over the over the chestnut fencing. The people going absolutely ape was brilliant. Sadly, yeah, my knee popped out. My cartilage popped out in my knee, and I had to stop at the top of the hill and try and work the cartilage back out again. That was just the story of that year for me, you know, with my knees. But yeah, fantastic atmosphere. You know, I still finished third in the first race in the mud. But yeah, amazing. You know, home race, like a home Grand Prix. Whenever a British rider does well at a home Grand Prix, the crowd really, you know, lifts the riders a game and makes the racing so much more enjoyable to see people cheering you on, waving the flags, air horns going. Yeah, it's brilliant. You know, what an atmosphere Fox Hills was as well, in that sort of natural amphitheatre, you know, with the noise and the air horns. You know, it's a brilliant atmosphere.
And it was like my hometown in Swindon as well, Rob. So it was literally like 5-10 minutes down the road. To see idols like yourself was amazing growing up in the 90s, that's for sure. Next question I got from a Simon Guest. He's put, you or Jeremy Watley at Matchams Supercross, who was better?
Jem was pretty good at Matcham because he lived down there and he knew it really well. It wasn't really Supercross as such. It was more sort of like a really tight sand. Oh, I mean, there was a couple of doubles on it, but it was small. But we're both pretty even, I think. I think he beat me as much as I beat him, and vice versa. I probably spent more time on the ground than he did. But I think we both rode quite well there. I think they ran a Supercross series there, and I think it was 89 or 90. They did like the Matchams Park sort of winter Supercross series, but tended to be quite wet and very one line. So it was a little bit of a lottery. But yeah, Jem performed really well down there. He knew that that sort of terrain extremely well, and was a tough character to beat. I mean, he was a tough character to beat anyway. But yeah, Jem, I think we're pretty evenly matched.
Fair enough. Next question I got is off my man, Vaughan Williams. He's a former BSMA schoolboy British Motocross champion. He's put his question, who would feature on Rob's Mount Rushmore of motocross legends? In brackets, 4 riders from the history of the sport, and why do they feature in his 4? Interesting.
Well, that's a good question. That's a good question. Because there are so many people that, you know, that you could think, you know, who would they be? But for me, I think my number one hero when I was young, and that I really looked up to was, and he wasn't that much sort of older than me, was David Bailey, American. He was the professor of motocross. He had the perfect riding style and technique, so he would definitely be up there. Then other riders as well. There's been so many, because how do you pick 4 riders out of, even going now, like Jeffrey Hurlings, Stefan Everett. You know, looking at those guys, and people like Roger DeCosta. Although I never saw Roger ride, you know, so I'd like to say somebody like Roger, but I've never actually seen him ride. So I just look back and think, well, who have I seen ride? And I'd have to say Stefan, Jeffrey Hurlings. Someone else like Bob Hanna, again, true superstar back in the 70s, 80s in America, and was the hard man of motocross, trained like a trooper, was just pure sort of not aggression, but pure determination. So people like that, really. I mean, it's a really tough question because there are so many great riders, and Dave Thorpe, our own British world champion. Got a lot of respect for David as well. So there are so many people that I could name, and it's really difficult to pick four out. But I'd probably have to say somebody like Bob Hanna, David Bailey, Stefan for what he's done and his smoothness, because he reminded me very much of David Bailey, although Stefan stands up more than David Bailey did, which is quite hard to imagine. And then Jeffrey Hurlings for his pure and upright speed.
Okay,
I still even forgot James Stewart, but I'm going to leave him out. He's my sort of fifth one, but yeah.
Okay, brilliant. There he is. Very hard to do that. Very hard to narrow that down. Next question I've got, there's no name on this one. It's put Lee. It would be great to hear Rob's thought on Nemours. What he thought to race in there and what rider he would make of it. What a rider now would make of it, sorry. Did you get that, Rob?
On Nemours?
Yep.
Nemours was... yeah, I got that. My thoughts on Nemours in Belgium, the circuit around the Citadel.
That's it, yeah.
I only raced there twice. I raced there in 98 and 99 on a 500, and it was amazing. I mean, in its own right, it should never be a racetrack. It's like the Monaco of Formula One. When you look at what is there and how dangerous it is if something goes wrong, which you have to take into consideration when you're building tracks and designing tracks, it should never be there. It should never be a race. But as a racer's point of view, it's so technical. There was so much in it. There was tarmac, there was sand, there were down through the trees, the double in the trees, jumping back into the Citadel. It was an amazing track to race. So many different types of terrain, so many elevation changes, so technical, and great fun. I mean, there was no point on that track where you could rest. You had to think about it all the time. When you're in the woods, the tree roots everywhere that you had to ride across at speed. A phenomenal place. And so again, a little bit like sort of Hawkstone, not Hawkstone, Foxes in a way, that the spectators, the enthusiasm they had for that circuit, the noise, the fans, the way that they treated that event, it just became, such a major part of the Grand Prix calendar. Nemours, okay, a lot of them went there for the nightlife as well as the racing. That was a big part of it. The beer tent, until the beer tent got pulled down and people were, climbing up the beer tent pole. But that was just part of it. It was a crazy weekend, but absolutely brilliant weekend. I only raced there twice. I wish I could have raced there more.
Jamie Robert, that's on YouTube live. He put, the legend Rob Herron was a god to me when I was a kid. Quality again, Lee. Your interviews are starting to take up a lot of the dark autumn nights. Quite a few comments, Rob, saying what a legend. A lot of legend comments here. The next question I've got, Fred Barrett has put, what was your favourite part of making your video?
Ooh, which I had a couple of videos I made Airtime, which I made that, I think it was 91. I made that, and I enjoyed that because at the time we were putting quite big cameras on the bike, and I was doing jumps, and I was riding on a private Supercross track in Northamptonshire, and we were mounting cameras on the bike and on myself, and I was wearing backpacks and I was doing stuff. I mean, now these days we've got GoPros, just stick a load of GoPros on, but at the time it was I was riding with some heavy stuff on, so just doing that with the cameras on was pretty cool. Getting some of the weird shots, and a lot of the shots we didn't actually put on to the video because it was showing the bike, its suspension moving and back wheel bouncing up and down, which we thought looked a bit sort of boring, but it's actually quite tricky to carry that kind of weight. And then we filmed at a British Championship, the last round of the 125 250 British Championship, so that was pretty cool. But I think I had fun making it. I had fun play riding. I had fun doing the interviews. So, but yeah, I enjoyed generally I enjoyed the whole sort of thing of making my own sort of training video. So yeah, enjoyed it in general.
Brilliant. Dan Merrifield has put, who in Rob's eyes is better, Stefan Everett or Ricky Carmichael? Ooh.
It's one of those, they call Ricky the GOAT. He's maybe the American GOAT, but Stefan's the European GOAT. And when the two GOATs get together, I don't know which one's going to be better. I think for me, I both of them had the determination of each other. They're both massively determined. I think as far as Ricky looks like he rode with aggression. He was a tough little character, strong little character, rode with aggression. Stefan rode with precision. The way that he rode, his balance was so precise. If I was to pick one, I would pick Stefan because of the technique that he had, on a bike. I mean, I think in his last sort of racing years, and I watched him. I'd retired by then, and I remember watching the Motocross Donations, and I think it's 2007 at Matchley. Watching Stefan go around turns in such deep ruts, stood up, feet on the pegs, and I watched all the other guys, James Stewart, Carmichael, all the best people in the world go around there, sat down, foot up, catching their feet in the ruts, and Stefan's going around faster, stood up. And it was almost like other people were watching him getting demoralized, and he was psyching them out because he made it look so easy. How many guys? I don't know anyone else that can do that, and it's almost like he tried to make everybody so not pissed off, but to psych him out so much by riding around, stood up like he was on an afternoon cruise, that everyone was just like, geez, man, how are we going to beat this guy? He's phenomenal. And he was phenomenal on a bike. So I would choose Stefan, and purely for that fact, because he was so technical.
And as it turns out, that's the only time I actually went to Matterley. So I was there that day as well. It was awesome to see Everett beat Bubba on the day. That was brilliant.
Interesting.
Next question I got is from Scott Bowman. Who was your closest rival, would you say?
I think in Britain, just racing over here, I think I had obviously Dave Thorpe, Kurt Nichol. Kurt was probably my closest rival because he spanned probably more years. When I came into the British Championship in sort of '86, he was in it until I left the British Championship in 2000. There were people that came in further down the line: Gordon Crockard, Paul Cooper, Jamie Dobb as well. Jamie, who was quite a rival of mine through the 125s and 250s, especially from probably '87 until he went to America, sort of in the early '90s. So Jamie was quite a close rival of mine. But if I was to pick one in the UK, I would say probably Kurt. Kurt was probably the main one because we spanned, probably about a 15-year period where we were pretty close rivals.
Yeah, pretty much swapping British Championships either way and that sort of thing with Kurt.
Yeah, and we ended up being teammates at one point, which was quite tricky for me anyway. But but Kurt, we never had any silly business on the track. I respected the way Kurt rode. I think Kurt respected the way that I rode. I don't think we ever touched bars once because we didn't need to. If Kurt passed me, he passed me clean. If I passed Kurt, he passed me clean. And generally speaking, it was the best rider that won on the day. So, I've always respected Kurt as a racer hugely because he's very, very determined, very fit rider. So I enjoyed our races together quite a lot. Didn't enjoy being teammates with him, I have to say, but that's for my own personal reasons because I didn't like racing. Having that sort of competition so close to me being my teammate, but I mean that's just the way that I work. But I thoroughly enjoyed, the rival we had with races. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. The next one I got is from Richard John Reed. He's put, South Africa has been known to produce some of the best riders in the world. Why do you think that is? And is there still talent there? And do you follow the MX in South Africa now?
I have to say that South Africa, when I grew up there, was a fantastic place to grow up as a kid. So much open land. We had a very, very good Camel International series that ran from probably the late 70s up until the late 80s, where we had some of the best riders in the world come over. We had Harry Everett, Heinz Kindergarten come over on a regular basis, Rolf Diefenbach, who was German champion. Some of the American riders would come over, Rex Staten. You know, we had people like Mickey Diamond, you know, loads of good races came over the years, and they gradually influenced the tracks. They were helping with the track building. So we had doubles, we had tabletops, we had whoops, and this is going back to the late 70s. We had the same kind of circuits that they had in America, because the Americans were very much influenced in the racing there. So I think as a nation, South Africa developed on very technical tracks. We had a lot of open land where we could just build tracks. You know, South Africa wasn't fenced off and had the land divisions that you have over here with hedges and, you know, and fences. It's very open. There was so much open land that you could just go on your bike and you could go find an area to play, ride. I had so many places where I could go and ride. And I think the American races there influenced us so much. And it was a very, very close-knit fraternity, the racing over there. There was only ever one race meeting at any one weekend, and everybody would be at that same race meeting. The schoolboys race on the same tracks that the guys on the 500s ride. There's no difference. So you race the same obstacles that the guys on the 500s ride. So the kids weren't scared of the doubles. They weren't scared of the whoops because they were riding them on 85s. There were no 65s when I grew up. The smallest class was 85s. But you raced the same tracks as the pros. So you were never phased by double jumps or anything, where the UK and that, you know, as soon as they see a double jump in the 80s, they take it out. You weren't allowed whoops because you get your wheels off the ground. You've got to keep your wheels on the ground. The UK was very backwards as far as technical tracks were concerned and what they were allowing the riders to try and get over. You know, they'd soon take something out rather than let the riders try and get over it, because there's a way of getting over it. You know, if you can't get over it, improve your riding. That's the way that I looked at it. And sadly, I don't keep in touch with what's going on over there now. I've lost touch completely almost with South Africa. They have produced some really, really good riders. And I think for that reason is the circuits were very technical. The racing was very close. And the racers, you know, enjoyed the racing because we had so much, enjoyed their riding because we had so much spare land to actually go and ride on. We weren't restricted on what we could do, what we couldn't do. So they've produced some excellent riders, you know, over the years. Tyler Rattray, you know, Greg Albertine, Gareth Swanepoel. I mean, there's loads. I mean, Paul Cooper, Carl Presswood, Ryan Hunt, Dennis Hewitson, all good riders. You know, I've probably missed a few out, so I'm really, really sorry if I have. But yeah, some Neville Bradshaw, you know, quality riders, talented riders. You know, some haven't quite made it, but, you know, very talented. Yeah.
Yeah, great conveyor belt that's come from there for sure.
Colin Dugmore, who went to Germany.
Oh yeah, Colin Dugmore, I remember him. Right. Next question I've got is no name on this. It's put, "Hi guys. So how does Rob feel with your lad racing, which is obviously James Herron? Sorry you didn't win the bike, James, or your ticket. And your grandchildren ride as well. How does that feel, seeing your boy ride?" And
I lost you on that one, Lee. Yeah, I didn't get the question.
Okay, mate. The question was, "Hi guys. So how does Rob feel seeing his lad out there riding now and winning, and the grandchildren ride as well? Obviously, I know about James. Sorry, didn't win the bike, James, and the ticket, but thanks for entering that."
Yeah, I enjoy James racing. You know,
Yeah.
I was very I went down the other route than a lot of the ex racers do with their kids. You know, because I struggled so much with my health and my injuries over the years, and I put myself under a lot of pressure, and my body's knackered. I didn't want James to go down that route. I wanted him to do it because it's fun. I wanted him to do it because it's a sport, and we do it for the fun of it. I didn't want him to get into the position like I was, where I lost the enjoyment, but I had to race because I had to try and earn a living to put food on the table. I didn't want him to do that. I said to him, "Look, you need to get a job, get an education, get work. You know, your racing is a bonus. If you don't want to race, don't race. It doesn't matter. Find something that you really enjoy doing and do that. If it was ballet, it wouldn't have mattered to me, because you've got to do it if you're passionate about it. You know, if James was like 12 years old and he said, right, Dad, I want to, I really want to go racing. I want to train. And I saw that he was really training hard. It would have been possibly slightly different. I probably would have said, okay, right, let's go that route. But I wanted him to enjoy it for what it was. It's a sport, and I don't like seeing dads that push the kids. And you can see the kids don't really. They just want to enjoy it, and sometimes they're too scared to say, "Look, Dad, I don't want to race today. I'd rather go out with my mates, or I'd rather go play football, or I don't like the track. I don't want to race." There's so much pressure for them to get out there and do that, and I didn't want to do that with James, and I've never done that with him. So he's still racing now, and he enjoys it, and he loves going out with his kids. And his daughter rides, and his little lad Thomas rides, and the main thing is that they're coming off the track with a massive smile on their face. And if they came off the track unhappy, then what's the point? What's the point of going? Go and find something that they really enjoy doing, And James still enjoys it. He loves it. He loves getting out on his bike. He doesn't race as much as what he'd like to race, because he's got a family and he's got commitments. But every time he goes out, he comes back with a smile on his face, and that's what it's about. There'll come a time where he decides, right, I've had enough. But hopefully, he's got his career behind him. He's got his work behind him, and the racing was a phase of his riding. It was a phase of his life that he can look back on and go, yeah, I enjoyed it, for what it was. It's a sport. It's a game.
Yeah, spot on, Rob. I agree with that. Don't put the pressure on the kids. Let them enjoy it. Totally agree with that one. Adam Pryor has just come back with a question. And Adam Pryor, what does Rob think of sidecar motocross, and have he ever fancied having a go?
Sidecar motocross, that's for men. That is for men. What I did was we're pretty tame. That is serious hardcore. Those boys, I have to say, fair play to them. I'll take my hats off to them. Gnarly. I have tried. I was almost talked into doing it. I had a friend of mine whose dad was big into it. He always wanted to get me on it, and I was too shit scared to get on it. And but he wanted me to be passenger, not to be rider. And I said no way. Ooh. But I mean, it would have been pretty cool, I think, to have had a go on it. But I think I would have really struggled, because you can't lay the thing over. But fair play to them. I have to say, the guys, some of the jumps they do on a sidecar is phenomenal. GP tracks, and they're jumping everything that the solos do, and there's two of them on it. Fair play to them. And they've got some serious horsepower too, because they don't run these these small engines that we run. But no, I have to say, mega awesome. But completely different though. All your ruts are straight up. None of them lean over. I need some that lean over.
You need to get sideways on something. I took pictures of the sidecars up at Fox Hill, and some of the pictures I got, like, the passengers are crazy, man. They're like literally every part of their body's touching the ground and all sorts. It looks good for the pictures, but wow, some fitness you have to do that. That's for sure. Scary too.
Yeah, I'll definitely hanging on to it. Yeah, I'd forget the passengers on there. I'd be wiping them out, and all the tractor tires and fence posts and stuff on the insides. You don't want me riding a sidecar, I'll forget about the
ride. Yeah. Right, next question I got. No name on this one. Does Rob still follow the MXGP now? And how does he think the GP tracks fare now to compare to back in the day?
Yeah, still follow them. I watched the GP a couple of days ago. Still follow the Grand Prix. I'm not an avid fan, I have to say. Track wise, I think track wise is kind of. I like the natural tracks. I like the more natural circuits. There's too many these days that you've got a parking lot, and you've got a hard standing for the campers, the trucks, and we'll just make a track. We'll just build it. We've got bulldozers, we'll just build a track. And it's very much, a lot of them are samey, load of jumps, big tabletops, some bank turns. To me, that's not overly appealing. I like something with a bit of natural terrain to it. I mean, Matterley Basin was pretty cool, because it was still a natural valley. But I do prefer the older style circuits. You need a couple of off cambers in there. Throw a few off cambers in, that'll screw them up. Give them the jumps, give them the tabletops, but stick a few grassy off cambers in. That'll make it more entertaining. But I do still follow it. Really glad to see Ben Watson won his first overall the other day at Lommel. Awesome for British racing. So well done, Ben. Still follow it. Waiting for Jeffrey Hurlins to come back.
He's definitely one of your favourites to watch then, Jeffrey Hurlins.
Yeah, I think what he does, little things that he does that no one else is doing. I mean, they're slowly catching on. They're slowly learning where he's so good. But he does stuff on a bike and on the track, how he uses the track to cover the ground. Because I watch that and I find things, he's so technical. But he's technical and he rides aggressively, which Stefan was technical and wasn't sort of outwardly aggressive. You couldn't see his aggression in the way he rode because he was so smooth. Where Jeffrey is aggressive, but also technical, but in a kind of slightly different way. Yeah, it's mega to watch. So I'm kind of disappointed that he's been out for so long because I thoroughly enjoy watching that kid ride. He's not a kid anymore, but he's pretty amazing.
If everyone keeps their eye out, I might have a prize to do with Mr. Hurlins as well to come at some point. Right, next one I've got from a Stuart Holland is put, tell Rob I'd love to watch this, but I've got to load the van for Portugal tomorrow. Wink, wink.
Yeah, I bet. I know exactly where Stewie's going. Stewie's going off, taking his bike to Portugal, going trail riding. Lucky sod.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Right now.
Yeah.
Right, I got another question off Adam Winslet, who does the VMX interviews for Farley Castle guys. Do you remember the Fox and Hounds Newbury Schoolboy National doing no-handed jumps and being threatened to banned from the meeting for doing it?
Yes, very, very well. Fox and Hounds, 1984, 125 Kawasaki. Myself and Colin Duggan come over from South Africa. We did the BSMA. That's the year I won the BSMA 125 seniors group. And we went to the Fox and Hounds, and there was a really, really fast jump along the back straight where myself and Colin, I think to start off with, we're just pulling tear-offs. We're pulling our tear-offs off in the air over the jump. And everyone was like, wow, you're taking your hands off in the air. Then we started doing no-handers because we were doing that all the time back home in South Africa. We were always doing, no hands, crazy stuff in the day. And it was just easy and normal. And, the club secretary and everybody all grouped together and got us in the tent and said, right, you guys, if you don't keep your hands on the handlebars, you're going to be sent home. We were like, well, we're not doing anything wrong. I'm actually legitimately, sometimes I was pulling a tear off going over the jump. So anyway, we still won the meeting, but it was kind of a bit strange to be told that we weren't allowed to sort of ride how we wanted to ride. It wasn't affecting anybody, but I do remember that very well. Very stony, fast circuit. I think they had a 250 Grand Prix there in 1985, which was the year after. So good track, very good track. I can still see it now on the side of the hill. You can see the outline on the side of the hill on the outskirts of Newbury.
Okay. I've got no name on this one, but I'm assuming they're close to you. He keeps jumping on my Wi-Fi next door. I had to kick him off. Oh, that's brilliant.
Who's that, James?
I don't know. There's no name
James.
come up on it. Yeah, it's probably He just put I had to kick him off.
No, probably James. He lives up the road. I'm probably on his Wi-Fi now. That's why it's so shit.
Right, I got a question off of Hub Gerlins. I think he's from Holland. He put, hello, Rob. He's put, who is your biggest competitor? I think we've covered that one. But then he put, and who was the biggest competitor from the Dutch guys? Greetings from Holland.
I think biggest competitor that I had, there was a few actually. John Vanderberg, who was 125 world champion, I think in 87, and 250 world champion in 1988, who was my teammate factory Yamaha in 1988. He was obviously Dutch, very good rider, very, very fit rider. John was a very, very strong competitor. So, yeah, big rival. You had Dave Strybos, who was a phenomenal talent, Dave, who was not quite at his peak when I came into it. He kind of peaked, I think, sort of 85, 86, but amazing rider as well. So Dave Strybos, Jan van Doorn, also Dutch rider, raced 250 Grand Prix, Factory Kajiva in 87, I think it was. Also extremely, extremely good. So those three riders in particular stand out to me as being the stronger of the Dutch riders that I raced against. There were other guys, obviously, like Pedro Tractor, that he was in 125 GPs. But I come across him now and again, obviously in the Nations time. But definitely Van der Berg, Strybos and Van Doorn, probably the strongest riders that I had to deal with from Holland.
Yep, some great riders come from Holland, that's for sure.
The
next question I got. Yeah, very good. The next question I got from YouTube is, if Rob never raced motocross, what other career would he have liked to have done and achieved?
When I was young, I always I wanted to be a pilot, or I wanted to be a policeman. Ooh. Those are the kind of things that I would like to have done when I was younger. Knowing what I know now, and having dabbled in the film side of it, I'd like to have gone into the stunt side of it. But I would have had to have done it at an early age, So because that appeals to me. I think a pilot, that kind of appeal. I like flying, and I like being up in the air. That's quite appealing to me. So I think, out of anything, a pilot, that would have been my number one choice.
You can you lay the planes flat as well, Rob, with a bit of swag?
Yeah, I can lay the planes flat. It's the wheeling side, and doing the stoppies on them that's difficult. But I can lay it flat. I mean, that's fine. Maybe I'd have to go into be a stunt pilot, one of these Red Bull guys that can, do the odd Red Bull sort of racing. That would be pretty cool. That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Next question I got for you, Rob. Someone's put no name, but hi, Rob. Did you ever get to try the YZM 500? If you did, what did you think of it?
Never got to ride it. I rode when I was with Yamaha in 1987. It's 88 actually. They had the YZM 500 out, and whenever I went to Yamaha in Amsterdam, because that's where the HQ was, going to the workshops, and Jackie Vimond and Leif Pearson's bikes would be there, and they would never let anybody ride it apart from Kurt Lundqvist, Jackie Vimond, and Leif Pearson with the 500 riders. Nobody else rode that bike. It was a real shame because it looked stunning in the day, perimeter frame, aluminium frame, and we were all very jealous of it, but we never got to ride it. So wished I had it done. I'd love to have had a go on it. I still see a couple of them floating around, the vet donations. There's now and again, there's one sneaks out there, but it would be pretty amazing to ride it. It looked a lovely bike.
Yeah, for sure. The next, I got a question off someone on YouTube. It's called Skewees999. Is that 3 9s? Anyway, his question is, an absolute legend, the most exciting rider I've ever watched, and he still looks the same. So a nice compliment there as well, Rob.
No, that's cool. Thank you very much.
Got a question off David Campbell, the old Scottish motocross rider. Remember him?
Yeah,
He's put, hi, Rob. Hi, Rob. Paul Coward and myself are having a good listen while I'm on the hollybobs up here.
Hey, Dave. Hey, Paul. It's cool. People I haven't seen for years. I haven't seen Dave and Paul for a long time. We knocked around the Grand Prix and the British Championship for many years, so hope you're all keeping well. Great memories of our racing days. So, what can I say? Keep out of trouble. Don't get yourself into this whole, COVID-19 situation too deeply. But good to see you. Well, good to hear from you anyway.
Had some good banter with David. When I was live walking around the Fox Hill track, he was asking me to go and find some Pro Grip goggles for him on the first corner somewhere.
Yeah. You chuck them off.
Yeah. So I've
Yeah.
got a question from David Smith. Wow, it's actually a shout out. It's put, "Hi Lee, can you ask Rob to give a shout out to my pal of mine, Paul Lyons? He is one of Rob's biggest fans. So can you say hello to Paul Lyons, Rob, please?"
Hey, Paul Lyon. Hope you're well. Shout out to you.
Thanks for that. Let's have a look. I've got John Radford, my old buddy that I used to race with, great rider. What was it like riding the '86 MX Nations in Italy, going against the Osho? Johnny.
It was. I was kind of thrown in the deep end because '86. I never, apart from I raced one 125 Grand Prix in '86. I hardly rode a 125 at all, and putting me in the Motocross the Nation team, was pretty cool because I performed really well that year. But it was, I had problems. The bike was slow. O'Mara was on. I mean, Johnny, I think his Honda contract was due up. He wasn't going to resign for Honda that year, so he had a point to prove at Maggiora that year. He was out to sort of to really show Honda how good he was. And I have to say that American team, that is the dream team. The three riders, Bailey, Johnson, and O'Mara, absolutely steamed it. And we finished second overall. So for my first ever donations, it was my first year in the UK as a 17-year-old. We finished second overall. It was pretty awesome. My only biggest regret really was not being able to make the podium because I was in the taxi going to the airport, so I didn't even get my silver medal from that. But O'Mara was phenomenal on a 125 to do what he did around that track, which was a horsepower track, had the hills where the 500s could really outdrag you. Johnny was absolutely, amazing. So I don't think a team will ever perform to the level that they performed at that meeting. Was if you were there and you watched that, you witnessed something really special. So I was glad to be part of it, for the reason of riding and finishing second, but also to be part of it for the fact that was the Motocross Nations of, I think, probably the whole motocross history. Phenomenal meeting and phenomenal performance from those three phenomenal races because it was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, very cool. And people still obviously talk about it a lot these days as well, which says a lot. I got another question on Facebook, and no name on this one. The hardest rider you found to pass, Rob, and that you were wary of when you had to pass?
There is only one. There is only one.
He's put every
Mervyn Anstey, Mervyn's word.
Yeah, it's the same then. He's put every British rider Lee has asked has mentioned the same name.
Yeah, feared by every racer on the circuit, Merv the Swerve. And he wasn't called Swerving Mervyn for any other reason. That whichever side you were going by, was going to swerve in front of you. So you either had to pass Merv on a part of the track where you were going so much faster, you were past him so quick that he couldn't swerve out and wipe you out. Which is a shame because Mervyn was a very determined racer himself, but he spent more time trying to keep you behind than he did trying to go forward. And but that boy could start. Jesus Christ, he could whole shot. He whole shot. I would say 99.9% of all the races. So you're always having to go past him at some point. And he was a hard guy to pass. Admittedly, he was really tough to pass. So you had to think. And I think plenty of times there was a bit of contact, but it wasn't because you were cutting a bit fine. It was because it swerved into you. So, and that's no disrespect to Mervyn. That's just the way he rode. But he was a tough cookie to get past. Very tough.
Great stuff. I got another question here. 1988 250 British Motocross at Knock Hill, where you jumped the tarmac racetrack. And he's also put any favourite track in Northern Ireland.
Northern Ireland, yeah, I like Desert Martin. Desert Martin's a pretty awesome track. Northern Ireland was apart from Desert Martin, which was a proper British Championship and Grand Prix circuit, most of the other tracks I raced in Northern Ireland were very much old school motocross, off cambers, rough, and sort of unprepped, really gnarly. some amazing tracks. I mean, I raced in Ireland a lot in 1986. My first year that I came over here, I raced over here. I did the Irish Championship, and I raced in the south as well. And I raced some tracks that were rougher at the start of the day than most British Championship tracks were, or race tracks were in England at the end of the day. They were amazingly rough, and there were some, I mean, lovely tracks as well. You know, the Curragh. I can't remember some of the names of them, but Bog Hill, which is down near Dublin. You know, lovely track, but rough as old booze. But yeah, I thought it got a lot of time for the Irish people. Had a great time over there. Loved my time racing in Ireland. But yeah, favourite track in Ireland, definitely Desert Martin.
Yeah, quite a few people have mentioned Desert Martin. Very nice, looks picturesque as well. I got a question off of Reg Owen. Do you still ride for fun now, Rob?
No. I've been out this year. I've done 2 training schools this year, and I've ridden at both of them. And realistically, that's the only time I've basically ridden in 2 years. I've probably, in the last 10 years, I've probably ridden 8 times in 10 years or something. I just don't. A, I don't have the time. B, I can't really afford to hurt myself. My knees are that sort of knackered, and my wrist, I can't afford to damage myself. I don't want to damage myself. I went through enough when I was racing professionally to put myself through that again now. I miss riding. I miss going out and play riding, but I know that I can't really do what I would like to do on the bike. So it's kind of no point really sort of going down that route. But yeah, I miss it, but don't ride now.
As you might remember, I did mention to you that I'm probably going to be trying to get a meeting together, obviously around this virus thing, hopefully next year sometime. We were going to do probably a practice day on a Saturday, race day on a Sunday. Love to get you there on the Saturday, even if it was just to do a lap of honour or something like that, just to ride round, because it might be we're looking at Fox Hill. So even a lap of honour from a legend like yourself would be amazing for me and everyone there, and hopefully it'd be a massive event as well.
Yeah, that sounds really good. You know, something like that where there's no sort of pressure. Because the trouble is when you go back to riding, and especially when you go back to riding, and there's other people of my sort of era, everybody expects you to be like you were back in the day. Well, I stopped racing 20 years ago, and now I just pot around. I'm not fast, you know, like I used to be, and I don't want to be like I used to be. But people expect you to be like that. So you know, you end up actually feeling like you've disappointed everyone, and I'd rather kind of leave that. You know, I was like I was back in the day, and that's that. Now it's completely different. So it'd be great to have a little ride round and see people, but for people not to expect me to be whipping it over all the jumps and doing all the crazy stuff that I used to do when I was young, because I'm not that person anymore.
No, it would just be purely relaxed, and it'd be just cool to get you there. And even like I said, even if you did a little victory lap, like a little lap of honour or something, that'd be really cool. Be honoured.
Yeah, I enjoy watching other people ride as well, and watching them ride as much as riding myself. So I have just as much fun watching other people.
Exactly, you can just hang out, enjoy yourself, and relax. You've done all your racing.
Yeah.
Next question, I got Eddie Fuller. He put on YouTube. He put, "Did you enjoy doing Bercy Supercross? And remember in '88, you being one of the first to do a big triple behind Mickey Diamond in one of the heats. Do you wish you'd done more Supercross as well? And what a legend you are," from Eddie Fuller.
Yep, I loved Bercy Supercross. I think I first rode there in '86, and going back to doing jumps and that in 1986, there was a triple there that there was only myself and one other person were doing, and John Savitsky, the track builder, had to take it out. And this is 1986, and I was my first year at Bercy, and they had to take it out because it was so dangerous, and we were doing it from a standstill. And then in 1988, like Eddie said, there was a triple there. We're actually jumping a double and jumping over the double and landing onto the top of the tabletop, which is after the double. And there was only Mickey Diamond and myself. I think Mickey did it in a heat race, and I saw him do it, and I was behind him, and then I did it, and there was only 2 of us doing it the whole night, and that was in front of Johnson, you know, Jeff Ward, everybody. Thoroughly enjoyed Bercy for what it was. You know, small circuit, Very, very intense. But I always, certain things caused me to have breathing problems, and I always found that Bercy, with the indoor event, with the fumes from the bikes, affected my lungs, and I struggled with that. Outdoor would have been fine, but I always struggled with the indoor stuff because of the fumes. Even stuff like Sheffield Supercross and the NEC fumes were right on top of you the whole time. But yeah, great event. I mean, great atmosphere, great show as well. You know, it was the top of all European Supercrosses. So yeah, brilliant. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, great memories from there. I got a question from Andy Statham. I heard that you did the stunts for Mission Impossible. Was this true, and was it on the roofs? Did you get that wrong? Oh,
no, I've done a little bit on Mission Impossible, but not a lot, to be truthful. Kieran, stunt. To be truthful, I don't do stunts as such. I mean, some people say, yeah, I'm a stuntman. I'm not. I don't try and be a stuntman. I'm a precision rider with camera vehicles. Generally speaking, I do some car driving stunt wise, but not with the bikes. But I did on the Bond films. I've done the last 5 James Bond films, and on Skyfall, I did a lot of the rooftop stuff, where you see Bond riding across the rooftops. But I wasn't one of the bikes that you see. I'm the bike that you don't see with all the cameras on, doing everything they did, but with cameras on board. That's the kind of stuff that I do. I have done some Mission Impossible stuff, but again, it's with cameras on board. So I'm always behind the camera rather than being in front of camera. Although I have done some films where I'm in front of camera driving. Some of the in the Bond film on Spectre, I was one of the car drivers in the snow, and one of the Land Rovers chasing down the mountain, being chased by a plane. I was driving one of the Land Rovers with Jamie Dobb as my passenger. So me and Jamie were in that, doing our little bit together, having a good reminisce about racing, back in the day whilst we're doing it. But yeah, so but Mission Impossible, generally speaking, I haven't done much on Mission Impossible, a little bit, but not a lot. Kieran Clark, who's an ex-motocrosser and ex-superbike rider, Kieran does the majority of the camera work on Mission Impossible.
Oh, very interesting. I've got a question here from Brian Tucker. Do you remember, Rob, when you won all 3 races at Torrington? I think it was 99, beating Stefan very comfy. What a great day. And for me, you were the best rider to never win a world championship. And also the jump sideways up the steps at Farley Castle.
Yeah, first of all, yeah, I remember 99 at Torrington very well. That was Stefan's first race back, actually, from he wrecked his knee earlier that year. And I think he rode the British Championship that year as a little bit of a tryout to see how his knee was. I mean, still, even though he was slightly under par, was still pretty impressive. Yeah, I won all 3 on the 500 that day. So I remember that very, very well, quite vividly. Always liked Torrington, very, very natural, but quite gnarly track, got quite rough and fast. Yeah, remember that very well. And yeah, Farley Castle up the steps as well, doubling up the steps. Always enjoyed Farley because little technical bits like the steps going up where you could double up them, where a lot of people weren't doing them. And you think, well, why aren't you doing them? They're quite straightforward. But obviously, with my background with doubles and triples and whoops and that, they were fairly straightforward. But yeah, I remember that very well. But I always enjoyed Farley. Always enjoyed Farley for what it was. It was a natural, completely natural, technical, grassy British scrambles track. Not like that anymore because a lot of the grass is gone, but it's pretty cool there.
Brilliant. Got another question from Richard Blackmore. Rob, please can you come out at Farley VMX Destinations, even if it's only for the 1 lap, please? I will supply the race kit.
Well, Dave King's asked me numerous times, and I have said to him, if I'm around, I'll come and do it. I did it in 2013, and I hadn't ridden for a while, and I just jumped on a bike in the morning and rode and felt really out of it, but thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved it. It was an amazing event. and I'd love to come again, but I'm always working, and I'm always away working. I'm either on a Bond film, or I'm, on Harry Potter or something like that, which is I can't get away from. So and that's what's kept me away from doing it. But if I'm not working and I am in the UK, then yeah, but it's really hard to commit beforehand because I never know where I'm going to be work-wise. But you never know. I'm not saying no, I won't do it, but just getting the timing right for me is more critical than anything else.
Yeah, fair enough. Someone's put, do you still ever speak to Colin Reid? He was such a great ambassador of the sport and did so much for British motocross. And I also feel he was loyal with his riders. Most of the 90s was mainly you, Carlson and Noble. And he said it was 98 fun, smashing out the GP 500 podiums in a little van with the legend Mr. Wheeler as a mechanic.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, I don't keep in contact with Colin, although Val, Colin's wife, keeps in contact with my wife and sends us birthday cards, never misses a birthday. Always had a tremendous amount of respect for Colin and Val and the family. Did an awful lot for British motocross. Some of my best years were with Colin. I raced with Colin in '94, and then in '95, '96, '98, and '99. And so 4 or 5 years I raced with Colin. I hope he's well. I hope the family's all well. But sadly, there's very few people in motocross that I have kept in contact with. And but Colin was a very, very genuine guy, and did an awful lot for numerous riders that have gone through his stable, and sadly not involved in the sport anymore. But put a hell of a lot of effort in. Look at that year in '96 where he ran Stefan. Stefan won the world championship for RWJ Honda that year. And most of that money came out of Colin's own personal pocket. So you take my hat off to him. He put his money where his mouth was, and won a world title through Stefan. Great on him.
Top man, I remember him very well. That was cool. Got a Craig Mark here. He's doing well. He's in Wales, and he's trying to campaign to get some more tracks around the Welsh area. So fair play to him. So give him a quick shout out. He's put, "Hi Lee, can you? I've just clicked on, been putting the 91 Kawasaki 250 together. Can you ask Rob, if possible, what was the Techniques video title called? 91 on a Suzuki RM125. I watched it as a kid."
Well, that actually wasn't my video. That was Andy Nichols made a video, and I just did a guest appearance doing some riding. But we kind of got promoted with my name sort of on it a bit more than what I thought. It was actually Andy's video. So to be truthful, I don't really know too much what it was called because I was never really involved in it. I just did a bit of a guest appearance. So afraid I can't help too much on that. But I do remember the front cover because I was in white and purple tackler riding gear that year. But I think it turned out to be quite a good video. I mean, Andy in his own right was a very, very good rider as well. Didn't have the technique, the up-to-date technique that I was riding with at the time, but was a very, very good rider, an ex-Grand Prix winner as well. So I'm glad it helped. I'm glad it helped you in your racing. But yeah, don't remember too much about what it was called, to be truthful. You probably got a better memory than I have.
Brilliant. Got a question off of Mark Gibson. He put, "Do you remember passing Dave Thorpe and Kurt Nichol at one of the uphills at Wakes Colne British Championship? You were on a 250 Yam, I think. Kurt and DT on the 500s. You were so fast that day and pulled away, and I'm sure your chain came off before the end of the race." Not sure if you remember that one.
Yep, 1987 was my first proper year in the British Championship, because 1986 I rode only half of the 500 series because I spent the other half in the support class. But 1987, and funnily enough, there's a story about which nobody really knows about that particular uphill where I passed David and I passed Kurt. Yeah, my chain did come off, and I should realistically have won that race. But the spot where I passed them both, you go up a hill and you crest over the brow of the hill and you drop into a bomb hole, which then had a really nasty lip on the other side where you jumped out and then round the left-handed bank turn. Well, I walked the track in practice and I looked at it and I thought, I'll tell you what, if I hit that absolutely pinned, I could jump that whole bomb hole and land after the lip and make the turn. And I made myself, I kicked up a little kicker about 2 inches high and packed it down with my foot, and I jumped it in practice. And I only just made the turn. I mean, how I never ended up going through the ropes, I've no idea. But it was, I've never ever done it. No one's even ever looked at doing it before. And I jumped that in practice. No one saw me do it. I didn't do it in the race. That's not how I passed them. But that's, to me, I always remember that one particular place. I remember because I did something that no one else has ever even looked at. So I do remember that meeting quite well, actually. Yeah, 1987 Waits Cone, a track that I always rode very, very well at, but didn't particularly like it. But for some reason, it suited my riding style. Kind of weird.
I remember riding there as well back in the day in the 90s. We've got another question from Colin Thomas. He's put, "Hi, Rob and Lee. First saw Rob ride in 1984 when he did a couple of schoolboy nationals. You and Colin Dugmore showed us Brits how to take the jumps properly. What did you think of the schoolboy scene in the UK compared to South Africa back then?"
Hey, Colin, hope you're well. Got good memories of Colin as well, with his mechanic and his racing too. So, to be truthful, the style of racing and the tracks that the UK guys were racing on compared to what we had in South Africa was so different. You come over and we never had grass. I remember coming over and going to my first ever schoolboy meeting when I was on 80 and going out for practice and sitting on the start line and letting the clutch go, and I just didn't go anywhere. I just sat there wheel spinning because I was on wet grass. I'd never ridden on wet grass before, so I was like, shit. What the hell's going on? My chain come off. My bike's not going anywhere. So, but the riders were really good. I mean, back in sort of 84, I think, was my first sort of year where I really sort of got to grips with getting a bit of speed up. I was on the 125, and you had people like Andrew Chambers, who sadly passed away only a couple of years after that. And he was the kiddie to beat in the 125 senior group. He was racing for Suzuki at the time. And his brother was Paul Chambers, who was still racing into the early 90s. But Andrew was a phenomenal racer, very, very talented. I mean, I remember Colin racing. I remember David Denley. I remember many guys. Paul Bickers was racing then as well, still, and going pretty good. Mark Banks had just moved out, so the level was really, really high. The tracks were so different. I mean, we were still winning. Myself and Colin would still come over and win, especially on tracks that had any jumps on, because we weren't phased at all about getting our wheels off the ground. I mean, we probably spent more time with their wheels off the ground than we did with them on. Where the British riders, when it came to a technical off-camber grassy track, would be more on our pace, because we'd have to kind of slow down because we weren't sure about the corners, but we'll make it up in other areas. So the level was really high, really high. And I'll tell you, the one place that really amazed me about how quick the riders were was Ireland. The amount of times when I would go to Ireland and race against guys that you'd never see in a British Championship, or would be so low down in the points that you wouldn't even notice them, that when you went to Ireland, that you had a great difficulty in even keeping with them, because the tracks they rode were so rough and so gnarly, but that's what they were used to. And if they had a Grand Prix on that track, they probably would have run top 3, but they didn't do it over here. So, same kind of like with the British guys in schoolboys on their own tracks, they were phenomenally good, phenomenally good. And it wasn't easy, racing in the UK then as a schoolboy. The tracks are gnarly, and the British riders were strong.
Yeah. I know Colin Thomas himself was a schoolboy British champion as well. And
yeah, that's right. I remember Colin. Yeah, watched Colin at Doncaster International. I think it was, and the many good riders that I still kind of see now and again. I remember riding with Colin about 7 or 8 years ago at Apex near Worcester. We were having a good natter then about racing back in the day. So yeah, good rider Colin was. Yeah.
I've got another question off David Campbell. He's put, "Hi Rob, would you say that you had more of a good time doing the 500 GPs than the 250 GPs? I know I loved the 500 GPs more."
Definitely. By far. The 250 Grand Prix were, I don't know whether it was the seriousness of it that kind of sport it. The 500s
was to me what racing was about in my early days, where the fun was back into it. You know, the camaraderie, like Dave was saying. You know, we'd all get on well. We'd all travel between Grand Prix together. We'd be staying off at the same campsites. We'd go running or cycling, or we'd all be mucking in together and doing things together. The social side was there, and it was great fun. The 250 Grand Prix was so damn serious. You do your race, you're back in your camper. You don't come out again until the next race. You know, you fly home. You train at home. You fly back out to the Grand Prix. There was no camaraderie between the riders. With the 500s, there was, and that was thoroughly enjoyable. And that's why I raced predominantly, because of that side of it, the enjoyment side of it. The 250s, there was nothing. You know, they built it up to be the premier class, but from a rider's point of view, it wasn't, you know, what I wanted to experience. You know, I enjoyed the racing, but there was no sort of fun factor to it. And it doesn't just mean on the track; it's the whole build up to it and the whole after the race. What do you do? You know. Yeah, we had a great time in the 500s. So definitely far more enjoyable.
Oh, interesting. Alan Douglas has put, did you enjoy racing at the old Brampton circuit up in Cumbria?
Yeah, Brampton was gnarly. Brampton, the old track was sand, deep sand, which we didn't get too many that kind of circuit in the UK. Got some good hills in it as well, really rough. Yeah, great track. You know, great track. I only raced there, I think, twice. Maybe 94, 95 or 93, 94 or something like that. But yeah, awesome track. So such a shame that track now doesn't exist and it moved somewhere else.
Gary David's put, what bike does Rob still, own any bikes still? Sorry, Gary David.
No, I don't own any bikes. You know, at one point I had my 91, my 92 Hondas, but I sold them to Vesti from a Pico many moons ago when I first retired from racing. So Vesti has I think he's got my 1989 Suzuki 250, 91 and 92 Honda 250s, but I personally don't have any bikes. It would have been nice to have kept some bikes from my days, but I hadn't got a big enough garage anyway. So yeah, I mean, they'd just be collecting dust in my garage. So yeah. My garage is bikeless.
Duncan Vaughan's put, did you replace clutches every race in the 125 class? Did you get that, Rob?
No.
Okay. Oh, I've lost Rob.
I never had a clutch problem on 125. Yep. You got me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Go on.
Had a lot of clutch problems on 250s, especially I think it was my 1989 or 1990 Suzuki, which I had a pile of clutch plates that was probably 6 foot high of used clutch plates, where I destroyed clutches in a day. But I never ever had a problem on a 125 with the clutch. You know, for some reason, the abuse that I gave them, they accepted, but the 250 didn't like it. So yeah, I was a bit of a clutch monster in my early days, but I think that was because of the sort of power that I liked from my bike. It was very no bottom end, all mid range, all top end. So you had to clutch it to find that mid range power, and that was just how I rode. But over the years, I gradually mellowed and became more adapted to having a bit more bottom end, so I could lay off the clutch.
I've got a question off my brother here, actually, just popped up. Jamie Ashby. He's put, hello, Rob. I used to love watching you ride. Fast and entertaining. Loved it. If you rode now, what bike would you choose to pick to have a ride?
What bike would I ride now? I'd ride something that's really mellow and really sort of tame, because my little old body's not used to hanging on to something that's too quick. So I wouldn't go for a 450. I'd probably like a 350 or something like that. Sadly, the Japanese bikes don't do one. I don't really want to ride a KTM, unfortunately. I'm not a fan. So I'd probably, if I was out to go and buy a bike now, I'd either go and buy a Yamaha YZF 250 or a 250 two-stroke Yam. That's, I think, what I'd buy if I was going to buy a bike. But I'd probably like the 250F Yam. yeah, it's good all round and not being too aggressive, but manageable. Yeah.
Well, I know if we do that reunion meet and it fits into your schedule, we'll definitely be able to sort you out with a nice bike. That's for sure. There's plenty of fans on here, and
Cool.
we seem to be getting a lot of contacts now, so we'll definitely sort you out. That's for sure.
I'll have a
Ian
little pot.
Price. Yeah, have a potter, Rob. Just a little potter. It'd be just a privilege to see you out there. Have a little roll round or whatever you want to do. That'd be cool. Ian Price put, I saw you clip DT on his last ride for Honda at Hawkstone Park. You sent him down the famous hill. Did you do it on purpose?
Nope, I've never ever taken anybody out on purpose, never ever blatantly hit anybody on purpose on the track. And I remember that move really, really well. I had a line coming down the hill where I was coming down the inside of Dave, and there was a couple of bumps down the hill, and I was hitting the first one and doubling over the next bump down the hill. And Dave was on the outside, and that particular lap, I hit the bump and taken off when I was behind Dave, and he moved over. So I was in the air. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't change my line, and we collided going down the hill. And we both went cartwheeling down the hill. I felt really bad, but there's nothing I could do. That was just my line and how I rode down there. But I think if I remember right, Dave lost the British Championship because of that, and I felt really bad because I remember after the race, somebody came up to me and was giving me a mouthful. Oh, you've ruined Dave's championship, blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, I didn't mean to do it. I was faster than Dave down there. If he hadn't moved Dave, I would have gone past him. So it's one of those things. Sometimes when you commit to something and you're fully committed, it's a race. There's nothing you can do. So sadly, I always kind of one of those things where I feel bad about it, but I was fully committed. I wanted to win just as much as David did. Yeah, I do remember it. I do remember it well.
Stuart Hollands put, come on, cake or pudding?
Well, I thought Stewie said he was going to Portugal. How's he? He can't be driving and also texting me and ringing up. He's supposed to be driving on his way to Portugal. But yeah, cake and pudding. I do them both. I don't need main course, cake and pudding. He knows that.
Love it. Someone's put, obviously you won the MX donations in '94. How special was that for you?
Pretty awesome. I've been second before in the donations and third in the donations, but '94 we won it. The saddest thing I think for us that day was the fact that there was no British journalists at that meeting, because they never expected Britain to probably be on the podium. So we hardly got it covered in the press, which is a real shame because everything went well for us that day. We all rode to our potential. The track, it didn't. You can't say the track favoured us because it was so damn fast and so damn rocky. But we just rode to our potential, the three of us, and especially Paul. Paul rode out of his skin. To win both motos on the 125, not having raced the 125, really before, was pretty special. So, amazing. The outstanding memory of mine was that 1994 donations, seeing the fans cheering for us, not just the British fans, because we were beating the Americans. So we had the Italians, the French all cheering for us, especially the last motor when they realized that it was a European team going to beat the Americans for the first time in 13 years. We had everybody cheering for us. So that finish line when I crossed it, which is a sea of people and a sea of flags and, awesome. Great memory. My favorite memory of my racing career.
Did you guys beforehand really go in there with the belief that you guys could win?
We always did go into sorry, I plugged my phone in. We always did go into it with the belief that we could win, because even going back to previous years, we were always one of those teams where we could have been on the podium. If things went our way, we could be on the podium, and we were always battling, to be truthful. After the second moto, most days we were either second or third. We were always second or third, and for whatever reason, we'd either be fourth or now and again we'd be third. Like in Australia, we were third, but quite often we'd just have that little bit of luck not go our way and end up fifth. So we were always up there. So I never went into it with the belief that I couldn't win personally. There were races that I won. I won a 125 in Sweden. Obviously, my French where I won in 88. I never went into it thinking that I couldn't win. I never went into it thinking that if the conditions were right, that we couldn't win as a team. We had such a strong era of racers back in the 80s. When you look at the guys that we were racing with in the 80s, we were doing Grand Prix regular, finishing top 10 regular. You know, you had people like myself, Jamie Dobb, Paul Malin. In the 250 class, you had obviously Kurt Nichol, Mervyn Anstey, Rob Andrews. Then you had like Dave Watson, Andy Nichols, Jem Watley, and numerous other riders as well. Many I probably missed out, and I apologise for it. That could finish top 10 in Grand Prix, and a handful of us that could win Grand Prix. You know, and you go into the Motocross Nations then with guys that have won Grand Prix or finished top 3 in the world. You have to believe that you can win it. We were always in a position to sort of be able to win, but we only ever did it once, where it all came together. And thanks to Dave Thorpe as well. I mean, Dave was a massive part in that, because he was the first year as our team manager, and I think he managed us as a team well. You know, we got on well. We had a good week training together. I'd injured my ankle actually the previous weekend at the previous Grand Prix, so I didn't do the riding during the week. They went practicing during the week, and I couldn't ride because I was giving my ankle a rest. But we went swimming. I couldn't run. We went swimming. We had a good week of sort of bonding in focusing on what we were going to do, and we all went into that with the same belief that we could win. I don't think one of us thought that we couldn't win if things went right, and they just went right.
Yeah, an amazing memories that is, for sure. Someone's put, can you ask Rob how good was his RWJ Kawasaki compared to the Hondas before?
Well, my Kawasaki, it's one of those things where, when I think back, at the start of the year, my Kawasaki was pretty damn amazing, I have to say. Really, really good. And it kind of lost its way a little bit throughout the year. I don't know what happened, but it never seemed to be as good as what it was at the beginning of the year. So, you know, it was still a good bike, but it started off amazingly well. I mean, whether that was just the difference in other people thinking, oh shit, our bike's not as good as Rob, to up their game, and they caught up to me a little bit. But I do remember Canada Heights, first round of the British Championship, how many people said to me, your bike sounds absolutely phenomenal. And it was really strong, but it kind of never ended like that. So I don't quite know where we went, whether it was something to do with me and my testing and changes that we did. We kind of lost our way a little bit, I'm not sure, but it was a very good bike though, I have to say. I was very, very impressed with that 94 Cowie. And yes, it was as good as my Hondas. Okay,
interesting. I remember you running the number 12 as well, wasn't it, on the Kawasaki? It was my old race number. I like that.
That's right, in the GPs. Yeah, number 3 in the Jeep. Yeah, brilliant. 12 in GPs, yeah.
Yeah, very nice. Dave Lawson's put, was Rob the first to do the big jump in Jerez? Is that Spain, isn't it? The 96 Nations?
No. Sebastian Tortelli was the first one to do it on a 125 Cowie. Because they were first practice out. We all rushed around there to have a look to see who was going to do it. And he came around first lap, and did it. And we were like, wow. And I think there was only probably, I would say, a maximum of 10 people that jumped it. And it was basically a downhill quad. And I did it pretty much every lap. But it was huge. I mean, it's the biggest jump on a track that I've ever done. I've done bigger jumps, but play riding, I've never done one on a track that was as big as that. And it was, I remember one practice, there was a Husqvarna in 2 pieces on the side of the track where the frame had snapped in half because he obviously didn't make it. He cased it and snapped the bike completely in half. It was a monster of a jump, but I remember it really well. And it was Seb Tortelli jumped it first lap on a 125 Cowie. And we were all like, first lap? Wow, that's special. He was on fire there anyway.
Yeah, so you thought we all got to do it now.
What excuse did I have? I was on a 500. I had no excuse. I couldn't say that I didn't have the power. He just jumped on a 125.
Yeah, I think I've seen a picture of Jeff Emig doing it as well.
Yes, I've seen a really nice picture of him way up in the air. Yeah, nice. I'd love to see a picture of myself do it, but I've never seen one. But yeah.
No, I've not seen that. No, I'll have to keep an eye out for that then. Gareth Edwards has put, where did you get your riding style from, and who was your hero, and how did you get such fast corner speed throughout your career?
My I think generally my style changed so much. When I first came over to South Africa, my style was completely different to what it was later on in my career, because I adapted and I changed so much, to the European way of riding, and riding with injuries changed my riding. But when I first came over, my style came from the American riders, and predominantly from Brian Marskoff, who was top American rider back in the late 80s, mid 80s, factory Honda rider with David Bailey. Phenomenal rider, but had a blood disorder and lost his ride because everybody thought he was overtraining, but he had hyperglycemia and he was getting fatigued. Lost his ride. Came to live in South Africa for a year. Basically lived with us. I rode with him and I practiced with him, and I learned so much from Brian. And his style then was pretty amazing. And I watched and saw what he was doing and tried to copy. And that's the best way of learning, I think, is watching and trying to emulate what you're watching. But my style came from him, really, how I adapted what I'd learned from Brian into my own way of riding. Also reading books, I had the Gary Bailey book of riding techniques, and David Bailey was always his subject that he took pictures of. So I grew up reading Gary Bailey's description of what I should be doing, looking at the pictures of David Bailey, riding with Brian Marskoff. So I was very much American, influenced by the American style. So that's where my style came from purely from the American side, and also tracks, because the tracks in South Africa were American style circuits. And my speed, for me, speed is about keeping your momentum up. And if there's a berm somewhere, I'd be on it. I'll be in it. So I was always railing the outsides, railing the berm to keep my momentum going. Where a lot of the British guys are on the insides. They think the shortest line's quickest, but you lose all your momentum. And I was very much keeping my speed going. When you watch people like Hurlings and that now, he rails the berms, and to keep your speed up. And the more speed you keep up, the smoother the track becomes, because you're on top of the bumps rather than in them. So, I grew up railing berms. So I was always looking for the outside line, or where there was a berm, where I could just keep my momentum going. Because you can go faster into the turn, keep your speed up, exit, come out faster, and same with the next one. So it's just a matter of keeping that momentum going as much as possible.
That personally used to be my favourite thing, berm. Going riding berms, that was my favourite thing. Berm bashing, we called it.
I love berms. Yeah, absolutely. Berm bashing. Yeah, mega.
Yeah. Get out of the ruts. Get out of the ruts. Someone's mentioned, I think I know the answer to this. Would Rob ever have another go at the Western Beach race?
Absolutely not. No, definitely not. Definitely not. I only ever did it 3 times. Only ever finished it once. It was great. It was great fun. But the first time I did it was when the quads, bikes, and sidecars were all mixed together, and that was mayhem. Because if you collide with a quad or a sidecar, you have no chance. Thoroughly enjoyed it, but I'll be quite happy to go and watch it, I have to say, but I wouldn't want to ride it again. 3 hours of being sandblasted, but it was great fun in the day to do it, though, I have to say. But it doesn't appeal to me anymore. But I'll gladly go and watch it.
Be good fun to watch. Someone's put, who would you put as the most talented rider of all time? Bloody hell.
Again, I think there are, in their era, I think every era has riders that are awesomely talented. And you have to take into account the technology of the bikes, the tracks they were riding on. Back in the day when you had people like Roger DeCosta, Joel Robert, in their day, awesomely talented American riders. Bob Hanna, people like that, awesomely talented. So for me, I can only really comment on the era that I've grown up in, because that's the era that I know personally, watching them ride and riding against them. I have to say Stefan. I have to say James Stewart. That guy could do stuff on a bike. He's a bit like Hurlings. James Stewart and Jeffrey Hurlings do things on a bike that other people don't do. And that, to me, is so special and what makes them stand out from anybody else. And sometimes, to me, results don't matter too much. It's to me, what stands out is the way they ride and what they do and how they look at things, because they look at things differently than everybody else. I have to say Stefan for his natural smoothness and technique. And I'd have to say Jeffrey Hurlings and James Stewart. That's for me,
Yeah.
If I was to pick one, rider, I'd probably say James Stewart.
Yeah. Very talented, wasn't he?
Absolutely. When he was on form, there was no one else like him.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Did you used to have a favourite surface, Rob? Was there like certain surfaces you preferred than others? Hard pack, sand? What did you prefer?
I preferred the sort of more clay to sort of hard pack more, because that was kind of what I was used to growing up on in South Africa.
Yeah.
I was never a massive fan of deep sand, although I was quite happy the sort of normal Ling type sand, but the Lommel type sand was my worst, because I sadly didn't have the technique to ride that. And I don't think I ever changed my bike properly enough to adapt to that sand riding. But yeah, I like the sort of more hard pack clay type circuits. For some reason, Blue Groove, when it was rock hard and it left a blue groove behind you, seemed to suit me really well. Although the tracks in South Africa were never that hard, but for some reason, I seem to do better on it or adapt to it better than other riders. But yeah, probably more the harder circuits.
Did you personally actually realise different times throughout your career that you were literally one of the fastest riders on the planet, motocross wise? Did you feel that yourself? Did you actually know that?
I think in at times I think in '88 in '88 in particular, because I broke my skateboard beginning of '88, so I missed the start of the year. But once I got back to riding again, I got my speed up. I think in '88 I probably was, and again in '92.
Yeah.
I think my speed was pretty good, but it was never the whole year. There was patches where, but I do think England never really saw my. I don't think my fastest years. I never really spent them over here. I think 1985 in South Africa and some parts of 1986 when I first came over, I was incredibly fast. Incredibly. I think back to some of the way I rode back in 1985, back in South Africa, and I was doing 125, 250s, 500s all in the same day, and I was jumping off one bike onto the next. Some of the things I was doing then, I rode absolutely wide open with a throttle almost like it was pinned back, and using the clutch, abusing my clutch. Hence why I went through so many clutches. My speed that I had then was silly, really. I'll be leading by like 10 seconds in a lap. But for some, so there were times, I think, I was extremely fast, but probably on the ragged side, because I hadn't learned to sort of stay on it going that fast, which is pretty damn hard to do. But there were times definitely when I was really, really quick.
You never really ever struggled with the raw speed, as it were,
No, I sort of had speed in abundance, really. I remember when I was practicing and that when I was really young, my dad would sort of say, look, you can go through this section absolutely flat out. And I would. And I'd do it, and I'll do it as many times until I could do it. And everyone was like, how the hell did you do that? How fast did you go then? But I always thought that if you can imagine yourself do it, you can do it. So it's thinking to yourself, actually, can I imagine myself going around that absolutely pinned? I can actually, right, okay, then I'm going to do it. And, I'll just push myself to that level. But I've never had the fitness to ride at that level for the whole race. I think that's where my crashes came in, or my fitness let me down, because if I'd have backed it off 10%, I could have probably raced at a reasonable level the whole race. But I rode at 100%. And I didn't have the fitness to race at 100%. Hence the getting tired or falling off.
Yeah. I've got a Simi Stocks put. What are Rob's thoughts on youth motocross today, And do you feel there's enough support to bring on new British talent?
Again, I'm not really involved in the motocross side anymore over here. So I certainly don't see any youth racing championship wise, at the high level. So I can't comment on. There seems to be plenty of teams around. There seems to be plenty of support for riders, but I don't know whether we're in the scenario where riders or parents or sponsors are having to pay into teams to get onto teams for the youngsters to sort of gain the access to the mechanics and the bits and bobs that they might need to get to a certain level. I don't know whether that's the case. I'm imagining that it is a little bit. But I think at the end of the day, there's irrelevant of sort of the support that's out there and the irrelevant of what you're doing. It's down to the rider. It's down to how much determination, how much you really want to do it. And if you work hard and you're also smart and you keep away from injury and you try and go about things in a sensible manner, and you just keep training and you keep riding, you put your motos in and you keep working, pick out where you're weak and you keep working on your weak points. It's personal determination, and people notice determination. People notice people that are willing to put the effort in, and you will get, hopefully, the support, to get you to where you want to go. I think there is support out there. There certainly seems to be plenty of British teams, especially like in the UK, doing the British Championship and the Nationals and that. So get yourself noticed. Just keep working. Be professional. Keep your head down. But be smart. Don't ride with aggression. Don't be a chump. Don't try to fetch people off. See too much of that these days. People riding, just focusing on taking the next guy down. You don't need to collide with people to pass them. Be smart. If you can't get past somebody without wiping them out, that's a poor show. So I see a lot of that. So ride with your head. Think about what you're doing. And I think there was plenty of scope. Just got to plug my phone in.
All right, I'll only ask a couple more, Rob, because these guys will go on all night, and I think Rob needs to go and have a drink. But I appreciate your time. Yes, he needs a cup of tea now.
That's okay.
Right, I've got a couple more that I'll ask, and then I'll let you go. Someone said, what was Rob's favourite mechanic over the years?
Favourite mechanic? I've had a few mechanics that I got on really, really well with. Mick Alders. A lot of people say Mick's a bit of a joker, and he was. But great guy. Had a hell of a lot of fun with Mick doing the races that we did together with RWJ. Steve Payne. Steve was a great mechanic. Absolutely OCD with his work. He was pristine, immaculate, prepared an awesome bike. My dad was a great mechanic too in his own right, great engine tuner. Did a lot for me in my career. I have to say I haven't really ever had a bad mechanic. Brian Wheeler, we had a great time with Brian. Didn't have any mechanical problems. Everything went sweet. But I think again, if I was to choose one, okay, Jeff Walker, also great guy. If I was to choose one and think, I like to sort of have one sort of mechanic all the time, it'd probably be Mick, and Mick Alders. I enjoyed the time with Mick. Mick was with me Kawasaki RWJ in my Honda days. Yeah, good guy, Mick.
Okay, right. I'll give the last question to David Campbell here. Just popped up with one. I'll give him the last one here. He's put in 1998. Rob, you finished third overall, I think, at Mantova 500 GP first round. Did you think I've got a good chance of winning the championship that year, as you had the pace, if not more than the rest of the riders?
Yeah, that was my first year in the 500s, first Grand Prix. Yeah, I think I had the pace. If I look back on it, I think, well, why didn't I finish top three? And it was all down basically to my body condition, to my knee more than anything else. I had massive problems that year with my cartilage popping out in my knee, and I kept it so sort of undercover, so under my hat that so few people knew about what I was going through. Colin Reed didn't know that I was putting up with this problems. Quite often it would go in a race, and sometimes it would flick straight back in again. Sometimes it'd be out for a matter of a couple of laps, and I could manage to ride. And sometimes it just locked, and I had to stop. And that, yeah, I should have finished top 3 in the championship. I think I ended up 7th, which is a real letdown. But I had a lot of speed on that 500. I think I really opened their eyes a little bit when I first came into the class, because Smets and everyone were on the 4 strokes, and there was only really Gert-Jan van Doorn that was on a 500 Honda at the time, and I qualified fastest at Mantova, and everyone was like, shit, didn't know Rob could ride a 500 that quick. But that 500 hybrid Cowie was a damn good bike that year. Of the 2 years that I rode the hybrid 500, the 98 was the better bike. The 99 wasn't as good as the 98.
Awesome. I really appreciate your time, Rob. Over 2 hours with one of my idols is amazing. So I'm personally very chuffed. I know that the guys have been loving this tonight. It's been massive views and questions. I really appreciate everyone's questions. It's been really enjoyable. Everyone's saying now, what a brilliant interview. Proper nice fella. Amazing to see Rob. What a legend. Great comments all the way through, Rob. I'll obviously share this out there on Facebook, etc., and it'll be on my YouTube as well, and I'll send it to you. But yeah, to spend that time with you, mate, has been absolutely amazing. Hopefully we can meet in the new year, maybe this reunion, and be amazing to see you.
But thanks, Lee, and thanks to all the guys, that sent questions in, and thanks to all the lads like, Paul and David and Stewie that sort of know me, and that have and Rob Andrews that have sent questions in. And it'd be great to see everybody again sometime. I do miss the days we had, and it'd be lovely to see everyone again sometime. So maybe one day we can all sort of get together at something like your event there, Lee, at Foxhills, and have a good catch up. It's been too many years, and we've got some great memories to reminisce over and chat over. So it would be pretty cool.
For sure. Yeah,
So
I think
I appreciate all the questions.
Yeah, I think that event would be amazing in itself, just like the get together of all the people. And if it's somewhere like famous at Foxhill as well, I think that'll just be the top it off nicely as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. Absolutely, that'd be awesome if it came off that it was Foxhills. My favourite track in the country, and synonymous with like some of the best GP races in Great Britain.
Well, that is going to be our plan, Rob. So that will happen at some point, just hopefully sooner rather than later next year with this virus, and hopefully that gets past, and we'll definitely make it happen. So we'll keep in touch. Great chatting to you every now and then. I appreciate your time, mate.
That's right, Lee. Thank you very much, and I hope everybody keeps themselves safe.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate that. Go and have a cup of tea, mate.
Will do. And you. Thank you.
Cheers,
Rob.
Guys. Thanks, Rob. Take it easy. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Great there from Rob. Amazing. Thanks ever so much, people. Thanks, Lee. Rob, top interview legend. Well done, Lee. Thanks very much. Yeah, definitely a top bloke, Radford. Thanks for guys all tuning in. Appreciate you all getting involved. That was brilliant. Thanks, Rob and Lee. From me, John Radford. Daniel Cheese was great listening. Thanks, guys. I'm glad you have your lads' evenings getting the live interviews. So that's cool. Nice to see you guys on. Hopefully you'll all join me this Thursday. Going to be live with Stefan Everett. I did write some stuff down that I'm supposed to mention. Obviously, I've still got the Jeremy McGrath signed shirt. Got that going still. I think I've done about 60 people have already bought a ticket. So get in touch with me, people. Just message me on any of my social media. You can get hold of me anyway. My number's on my website and stuff like that. If you need to text me, WhatsApp me, whatever you want to do, get hold of me if you want a ticket for the Jeremy McGrath signed shirt. Got some really cool items coming up as well. And I actually will have a prize to announce on Thursday when I do the interview. So keep your eye out for that. What else do I have to say? Oh, yes. Next week, we're going to have a live with former Speedway World Champion, Mr. Mark Laram. British champion multiple times as well. What an entertaining rider he was over the years. So hopefully you'll all be on here for that. Also, just before I came online, some more brilliant news. I would just want to say a big thank. Oh, actually, before I go on to that one, I just want to say thanks to former Team Green man, former GP man, Tony Marshall, who put me in touch with Mark Laran. And 2 other bits of news. Tony Marshall's also sorted me out to get hold of Jake Nichols. So Jake Nichols is likely to be on a live interview with me next week as well. So we got that to look forward to as well. And just before I came on, I was just about to say, big thanks to Paul Dunford. He's just got a hold of me, Sean Simpson as well. So looking to set that up with Sean Simpson as well next week. So we got that one to look forward to as well. Obviously this Thursday, get your lads' nights round together, chick nights, whatever it is, family night in front of here, because I'm going to be live with Stefan Everett this Thursday evening, 7:15 p.m. UK time, 8:15 in Belgium for any of his Belgian fans. It's been amazing, guys. We got people from all over the world are messaging me. I've had Panama, America, New Zealand, Australia. Everyone seems to be watching from all over, so it's amazing. Yeah, it's been really cool, as my mum would say. I say, Lee Ashby, I've got my ticket. Yeah, that's cool. It was a great interview with the fish. Great job, Lee and Rob. I couldn't pull myself away. Great stuff. Wow. Over 2 hours with Rob Herron. Amazing for myself personally as well to bring it to you lot. Rob was without doubt one of my favourites for sure, especially around that time, early 90s. I was just coming into riding 125s, and Rob on his Castrol Honda at Fox Hill, winning the first race in the 250 GP. I'm thinking 92, 93. Amazing. Fox Hill was literally down the road from me, so that was amazing to be able to do that on my doorstep. Ross Jarman, former GP man, top man, the fish. Fuck me, that boy was quick. Yes, totally agree, mate. At times during his career, I know he had a lot of injuries, and I think that may have maybe stopped his chance of winning a world title. But at times during his career, he was without doubt one of the fastest motocross riders in the world in the 80s, early 90s, and late 90s as well when he went to the 500s. What a rider, what a talent. I believe as well, Rob raced most of his career injured as well from injuries, bad injuries he got throughout his career. Everyone's saying, thanks, Lee. Rob, top interview, legend. He's absolute. I know we banned quite a few of the legend terms out around, but he's definitely one of them in British motocross. What a rider he was. What a brilliant interview. Proper nice fella and amazing memory. Thank you very much, Mark Gibson. Good evening to all the Somerset boys down there. I'm glad you're having your lad nights in front of the interviews. That's cool. Stuart Patstone, love that, Lee. Thanks, Stuart. Thanks very much, Gary David. Great interview. Appreciate that. So yeah, still loads more to come, people. I'm literally speaking to everyone. I've agreed loads of different ones. Hopefully you'll all be excited by them all. Don't forget, I've got Nicky Pedersen, Speedway one to come as well. Mark Laran, loads of the guys from the 80s and 90s eras I spoke to. So I've got all that to sort out as well. Yeah, big thanks to Mr. Tom Brown, who's jumped on board with me to support me. Really appreciate that, Tom, with his Moto Extreme down in Marshfield. Great little shop down there they've got, and loads of renovations they got on going down there. I personally went there at the weekend just gone. So that was great to get down there and see them guys, Tom and his dad. His dad, brilliant in the workshop. Yeah, they got the brand new Kawasaki 221 Kawasaki's coming in there. So if anyone's interested in them, get hold of them guys. Tom's always got some beautiful used bikes in there and restored bikes and everything, and all the gear in there. So if anyone wants to get hold of them, get hold of them. Also, he's got his Moto 46 pack. What an amazing facility that looks, and he's looking to do big things with that. So I'm sure if you get hold of Tom, you can book in. I think they ride Saturday and Sundays at the minute. I know they didn't at the weekend. The weather was terrible, but hopefully they'll be up and running again this weekend if they can get a decent break in the weather. So yeah, get hold of them guys if you want to get practicing at the Moto Park 46. Heard good things about it. Thanks, Mick. Much appreciated. Cheers, Wayne Davis. Ledge, how you doing, mate? Thanks, mate. Awesome interview with the fish, my all-time hero. Yes, exactly that as well, Paul, with me as well. Hub Girlins, good night there in Dutchland, Hub. Thanks, Lee and Rob. A great big interview. Yes, definitely a big interview. What a rider he was, and over 2 hours with a hero of mine. Amazing. So I will share this out there to all these guys that didn't see it live. And we will be back Thursday night live with the man himself, Mr. Stefan Everett. So that should be awesome. So make sure you're all here for that. That'll be live 7:15 UK time on Thursday night. So make sure you're in here with your questions. Be very interesting to see what you bring to that. I noticed a lot more of you had your profiles and your names up, which is great, but there was also still quite a few that didn't, which is a shame because I couldn't quote your name. And it just comes up there like that, look. Great stuff, Lee. And then you don't see the name and the profile picture. So I think it comes up before you go into the live. There's a link on the actual status saying that I'm live. If you click on it before you come in, you should allow StreamYard to go on your profile, and then I can see your thing. See, it comes up like that. Otherwise, thanks, Lee. Thanks, Rob. Just don't see the profile and the name. It's just a shame because I can't get to quote your name, so we know who said it and get your name up on the screen as well with your heroes. So a few more to sort out that. But thanks ever so much for everyone. Good night and God bless to you all. Hope to see you all Thursday. And as my old man would say, bless him. It's nice to be important, but it's important to be nice. Ciao, Bella. See you all soon.